Ms. Marsteller, this is Holly. I just wanted to let you know, you can't see me, but I know you can hear me. And you're big on our screen, so while you can maybe see all of us out here, I just wanted to let you know that we definitely all see you.
Large as life, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Is this how you wanted it, the screen? Okay.
Yeah, so we were just waiting on Mr. Mitchell.
I'm gonna put us back on mute until we officially start.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, good afternoon, good evening. We are going to go ahead and call to order Children's Services Council of Leon County, Thursday, June 20th, 2024. It is now 4:06 p.m. So yes, good afternoon. There will be opportunities for public comment noted on the agenda and will be offered prior to any council vote. So if you would like to offer public comment, please complete a comment card and provide it to Ms. Jacinta Clay. Council members, remember, if you would like to be recognized, you lift up your name card and that's how we will acknowledge you for any comments that you have. So with that, Ms. Clay, we will entertain a roll call.
Simone Marsteller,
Here.
Brent Johnson,
Here.
Judge Miller,
Here.
Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah,
Here.
Commissioner Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. Watt,
Here.
you have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And if you all can remember, we did establish bylaws around virtual attendance. If physical quorum is established for any meeting, a council member requesting to participate in a meeting virtually may do so with majority vote of the council. So we do have one of our new members, Ms. Simone Marsteller, who has made that request. So at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move that we allow Ms. Marsteller to participate virtually.
Mr. Chair, second.
All right, so moved by Mr. Paul Mitchell and second by Commissioner Cummings. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we approved by consensus. At this time, let's welcome our two new council members, Mr. Brent Johnson and Ms. Marsteller. So we are definitely excited to have you on here.
Thank you.
I definitely wanted to allow, if you all would like to offer any comments here. Floor is yours.
I'll defer to my colleague in the room.
Okay.
Simone, I was going to defer to you. Don't worry.
So it's going to be like that. Okay. No, please go ahead.
No, I just want to say that I look forward to serving on the commission and look forward to all the work we do together.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Marsteller, yes.
And I echo that. Thank you all for allowing me to appear by video today. I am at the annual Florida Bar Conference in Orlando. I too am looking forward to getting started, learning my way, and I will ask your patience in advance for my elementary questions as I get up the learning curve.
Thank you. Well, we are excited to have you all here as well, and we will be glad to share the love of all the work that goes into this council. So thank you. And
If you don't mind, can y'all share a little bit about your experience, your professional history, and just a little bit?
Absolutely. I moved to Tallahassee in the late seventies, attended Florida State, graduated with a degree in accounting, got my CPA license, practiced traditionally inside CPA firms for about 7 years, and then I veered off that path. I did a national office residency with a national office firm, wrote and taught some training programs around the country. And then I was here locally with the Florida Institute of CPAs and senior management jobs. I ran a startup company for all the state CPA societies and the American Institute of CPAs for a few years, commuted up to New York for 5 years. And then I worked in a international consultancy here locally. And for the last 9 years, I've been the executive director at Rady Law Firm, which is an administrative and regulatory law firm here in Tallahassee. I would say probably just some things that are more germane to this work is that, you know, I've just had a passion for kids. I was blessed incredibly with 2 loving parents, 2 sets of grandparents, a couple of brothers that I like most of the time. And then I just look for opportunities to give back in that arena. I've been in mentoring programs. My wife and I have served as court-appointed guardian advocates, and I've been on the opposite side of the bench from Judge Miller for a long time, and you know, so grateful for him and his service. Just as a conclusion to it, that you know, he got to hear all the case management conferences for this young man, and then the young boy passed away, and Judge Miller showed up at the celebration of life. I think I have a little video that included Judge Miller maybe dancing at that celebration of life, but I'll save that for later.
All right, thank you. All right, and Ms. Marcella?
Well, I have been a resident of Tallahassee and Leon County since 1999. I have worked mostly in state government since then. I started and ironically ended my state government career at the Agency for Healthcare Administration. I started in 1999 as an appellate lawyer, moved on to do a variety of things in a variety of agencies. I worked in Governor Jeb Bush's administration, partly as his assistant general counsel, interim secretary of the Department of Management Services. I was the state CIO for a year, and was very blessed and honored to be appointed to the First District Court of Appeal, where I served for roughly 6 years. When I retired from the court, I went into private practice with the Gunster Law Firm, where I am again. But in 2019, Governor DeSantis invited me to be part of his administration, first as the secretary of the Department of Juvenile Justice, and after a couple of years, then as the secretary of the Agency for Healthcare Administration. In both of those roles, but certainly as secretary of DJJ in particular, I really came to know and understand and appreciate and find extremely meaningful working for and with children and families, but kids who are at risk, as you can imagine. So on the DJJ side, you know, doing as much as we could do from a prevention perspective, which I think is a lot of what this council is going to be focused on and has been focused on. And then even on the ACA side, right? So from a health perspective, you know, healthy kids early on, helping them to get through Medicaid, to get to their doctor's visits and making sure that they grow up healthy and strong. And after I left the agency at the end of 2022, I've gone back into private practice again with the Gunster firm. But I also sit on the board of the Florida Guardian Ad Litem Foundation. So this is a wonderful addition to my ability to serve children and families both in Leon County and Tallahassee and the state of Florida. It's a cause that is near and dear to my heart. And I am honored and privileged to be part of this august council to do some good work.
Thank you very much. And this is by far one of the most enjoyable experiences for me in my career so far. I mean, we all work, may have different views, but we all work so well together. And so definitely looking forward to working with you all as well. And I do want to acknowledge Director Green. I believe we do need to acknowledge that.
Yes, so prior to the convening of this meeting, both our new council members were sworn as required by Florida statute. And they have signed those declarations, as have I.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Do you have any other comments? Right. With that, we will move on to the next. So we do need an approval of the agenda. The agenda and meeting packet were distributed and posted. And if there were not any changes to the agenda, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move the agenda.
I second, Mr. Chair.
Right, so moved by Paul Mitchell and second by Commissioner Cummings. And if there's no objections, moved by consensus. Thank you very much. So next, we will move on to the discussion of election of a new council chair. As you know, Dr. Glenn is no longer with us. And so we will, per the bylaws, we have to have the discussion around a new chair to be elected. And so with that, I'm going to open the floor and I see Paul Mitchell.
Mr. Chair, well, first of all, thank you for serving so capably in the vice chair and at least temporarily in the chair role. Little more than 3 years ago, when I joined this council, and there have been some changes. I've enjoyed working with every one of you, and was sorry to see Carmen Connor leave. Sorry to see Liza McFadden leave. Simone, Brent, don't get any ideas. They don't just leave. Nonetheless, and certainly sorry to see Dr. Glenn, who was an amazing chair, following in the shoes of an amazing chair, and that was Judge Sostrom. As I started to think about the new constitution of this body, with the addition of Simone and Brent, and sort of looked around, I thought about sort of the first time that Mr. Jones came to sit on this board, filling in for Alva Striplin as a member of the school board representative. And I have watched Mr. Jones and his passion for really trying to make a difference in this community. And as I looked at that passion, and I also looked at his experience sitting on the board, along with a willingness, I think, to dedicate time. I thought there's only one person that should do it. And so I hope, Mr. Jones, that you will consider serving as our chair. I think you would make a phenomenal chair, and would follow in the footsteps, very big footsteps, of Judge Sostrom, as well as Dr. Glenn. And so that is my motion.
Is it a second?
And I saw your.
Yeah, he kind of beat me to the punch. You know, by law, we can't discuss any of these things outside of the sunshine. I was gonna say exactly what you did. I've seen this man at work. What the job he's done on Leon County School Board, his passion for children throughout our community, especially those that are disadvantaged. And I think you've made a wonderful selection, and she's already seconded, but he's gonna have my full support because I know that man. I know his heart. It's absolutely the right person in the right place to be in this position.
So we had a motion to nominate Daryl Jones as the chair and a second by Commissioner Cummings. I believe we need to take public comment. And so do we have any public comment cards?
There's no public comment.
Okay, and with that, I think that we will actually move towards a vote. Unanimous vote, so
There are no
Yes, do we have any objections?
No objection.
So with no objections, we have a unanimous vote to recognize Daryl Jones as the new chair. And I would like you to provide a few comments, please. It's really important. Okay, so it actually starts now.
The job starting now. Thank you, Mr. Now Vice Chair.
General public. I think they're gonna take the parts of it.
Time to time, people have referred to Mr. Jones, Dr. Jones. This point forward, is it Dr. Chairman? Is it?
Some degrees are earned and others conferred.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you all. I couldn't say anything right there. Rocky knows, when I was elected chair of the school. I wept for about a good 10 minutes and I had to get my speech to tears, right? Because I was humbled, particularly when you work with such fantastic people who bring such a wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise, and you're honored and humbled, particularly, you know, with Miss Mosteller, who I have admired for years, for her work in this space, particularly meeting the needs of children in vulnerable populations. And in vulnerable circumstances, and then the best superintendent who I get to work with on a daily basis in the entire state of Florida, who has taught me more without the formality of a classroom. I'm just humbled by the opportunity to serve with you all, and then of course Carolyn Cummins, who's my daytime boss, but most importantly, is also a fantastic whose experiences and service to our community I've admired as a fellow grounds person who has worked in grassroots movements for a long time, particularly to meet the needs of children. And well, this guy here. So I just appreciate you all. And Paul, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ain't often that I'm at a loss for words, as you know. So for you to put me at a loss for words, you know, that was very, very great. Judge Miller, we will miss you as you prepare to transition to another judicial appointment and judicial responsibilities. But we're also excited to have Judge Hobbs, who is also a great advocate for children. So thank you so very much. And I look forward to getting to know you better. And to the great staff, well, this is the best team ever. And to my classmate, I don't know if I've ever told y'all this. We were in college, you know it's coming. I was an English major at Florida A&M University too. And many of you may know Kenneth Pratt in our community. His father, Dr. Lewis Pratt, was the chair of the English department at Florida A&M University. And when I came in as a freshman, I thought I knew everything. And I ended up learning more about playing cards and hanging out on the set than I did in the classroom. Dr. Pratt asked me one day, why can't you be more like Sika Trufler? Because she was the North Star by which and the yardstick by which all other English majors were measured. And so here now in this position, I get him again, striving to be more like Sika Green. So thank you, all of you. I appreciate this chance to serve you all, and thank you to our public. So without further ado, Mrs. Green.
So next on the agenda is general public comment.
Ms. Clay? Any general public comment?
Yes, we have several general public comment.
All right.
First public comment will come from Mr. Klein Miller.
Mr. Chair,
Before we do that, what was this agenda item, consideration of governing council meeting time?
Oh, that will come later in. It's gonna come later at the bottom.
We'll remind all of our public speakers that they have 3 minutes.
Subtracting from each time. Mr. Chair, while Mr. Miller is passing things out, one thing that we had encountered at last year's meetings was with several, many different people wanting to speak. Our rules allow for 3 minutes for each one. There was some consideration given of members of the public giving their time to someone else, and we chose not to do that, and I think that's probably a practical thing.
Yes.
And I'm not suggesting that that's what's here, but because I know what's coming in July when there will be real discussion of a millage rate, and we really do want to hear from the public early. And June is early, so that's good too.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind everyone that we made that decision, and I hope we stick to it.
Yes, I'm open to it. That would be my suggestion.
It is. I just, yeah, it was more just to remind us for July.
All right.
The lady went to make a copy for me, so I gave all my copies out.
Well, let me give you my
Christopher, which one?
Here's the next one. Yeah, that's not, yeah. First of all, I'm happy to be here and I think y'all are doing a great.
Yeah.
I think y'all are doing a great job. I have 2 children, both educated in county schools, but the Leon Howard Rocky, didn't know he was on this committee here, so. Great, I'm a graduate of Florida State University, business owner here in town, but one of my concerns, and it's not with your group, it's not with any group, it's the taxes in city of Tallahassee and Leon County, as you can see from the graph, have really gotten extreme. And the majority of that is the valuation of real estate's gone up. We all understand that. I attached the millage rate, and Mr. Mitchell mentioned that will be addressed in the future, but that's all the millage rates that were on my tax bill, and I do live in the city of Tallahassee. And I'm looking at my 2023 property tax bill. Of my taxes, $69.67 went here, which is that's $70. But when you add all this up, my taxes are about $383 a month. Okay. I'm a successful businessman. I can afford it, but there are a lot of people that can't. And in property taxes, we don't have a choice. You gotta pay it. When we shop daily, you can go to the store, you go to Walmart, Target, you can cheaply go spending money. Property taxes, you're stuck there. And you look at the revenue due to the increase of property that's coming into the county, and I just went over this with the city of Tallahassee. It's extreme. So what I would propose, and y'all are, I guess, are a county agency, is that correct? Are you funded by the county at all or independent?
Funded by you.
By you, okay, right. In 2023, the majority of 8.3 mils went to Leon County General Fund. That's what this graph is. Is it possible that Leon County General Fund can offer y'all some assistance financially? Why is that?
It's prohibited. The charter that allowed for the creation, we can't, we receive only one bit of fund.
Okay, okay.
But you make 3 minutes to make public comment. There's not an exchange between us.
Okay, that's so.
You have the opportunity to do that through formal written email where we can address at that time, but we're on the clock.
Okay, that's well, basically, I think we don't need to increase property taxes. your group, Leon County, City of Tallahassee. What I think and I'm not saying you as a group, because I don't know any of y'all, but Rocky, I don't know your financials. I did look at them. But the city and the county, they have a money management issue. They're getting a lot of money and they seem like they're in debt. There's a lot of people paid a lot of money. I mean, they're a call center, not a profit center. And I just think that with the taxes, they need to be, revenue needs to be better managed. So I'm against any kind of tax increase. Okay, there's other ways to raise money.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker.
Next public comment, Mr. Richard Dudley. That's not say right, you say
It's like Tom Dooley.
Dooley, okay.
Get your name and your address, please.
Okay, my address and name's on that piece of paper. My name's Richard Dooley. I live in off of Penderton Way, city and county. Does that answer your question or you want more detail?
Continue.
This is my first time here at the meeting. I'd ask that none of the people that I'm speaking to get on your cell phone while I'm talking. I saw that when the other gentleman was speaking. I'm here to suggest and ask you to consider the rollback rate that was discussed before for taxes, that you adopt that. It's one of the main reasons I'm here, that we don't need any additional taxes. As you know, we're in all these inflation and different things. Go to the gas station, go to the store, everything costs more. And I think with the new homes that are being sold, they're being taxed at a much higher rate. So if I could probably do the math for you. We have plenty of tax money coming in. And I don't think we need a tax increase from this organization. I also, first time here, I looked at a little bit of your budget information. I was astounded. I belong to a lot of nonprofit organizations. And I see that your administrative costs are over $1 million. And you only spend on the services about 2-3. That's pretty discouraging to me. I see a lot of organizations where the 10% would be a big number before you donate to them. So in this case, we don't have a choice of donating. You're taking that money from us in taxes. I also was astounded that I watched on television that we raised money for peanut butter. And I thought, well, that was going on. This is not a direct comment against the superintendent. I just happened to be watching TV. I think it's a great thing, but I didn't know why we had to get on that television. It's a good thing for the TV channel. I know that it's publicity, but why do we have to raise money for our children to eat during the summer when there's plenty of money? We have $183,000, okay, in insurance income that's sitting there that could buy a lot of peanut butter. So I'm a little discouraged at seeing that. And also, I don't see anything in here. Do you know we have 17,000 veterans in Leon County, just in Leon County. I don't see one program here directed at veterans' children. So maybe that's an item that you could look at to see programs that might be adapted to veteran children that have disabled or having issues. So sometimes those veterans have just as many issues with taxes and things as other veterans, but they also have disabilities and probably some mental conditions that prevent them from maybe doing things for their children. So just a couple of comments. Thank you for what you do, your service to our community, and I appreciate you allowing me to give you the comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Next public comment, Ms. Mona Hamilton.
Good afternoon.
Your name and address. Correct.
I'm Mona Hamilton, and I would like to share some information from last month's Kiplinger report that states the following. There are rising costs for transportation services, electricity, shelter, both food away from home and at home, used cars and trucks, medical care, etc. Consumers may be forgiven if they're suffering from sticker shock on an annual basis. The bottom line is that prices are still rising at a rate not seen in generations. experiencing this personally and hearing it from so many other people. Taxpayers have already been stretched thin through inflation and taxation. I'm here today to ask you to please choose the rollback rate presented. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address my concerns.
Next speaker.
Next, public comment, Margaret Boland.
Margaret Bowen and my information on card. Just wanted to also agree with the rollback if we could, with the increase in the property values, it's an increase in your budget. Keep it the same, make money. This economy, they talked about the taxes, they talked about inflation, the city taxes are going up. This is gonna be another tax that we're going up, and you add that on to everything else, somebody on a fixed income, it hits us hard, it's very hard. I have a granddaughter that I watch almost every day because her mom is a single mom. I know what it's like when you have to take care of others outside your being. And what I want to say is that the family is so important with that. I don't ask for government help. I don't expect it, and I don't think I'm entitled to it. So all I'm saying is the family is more important than anything else in this country, and I hope that we can think of ways that we don't have to spend money so that people take care of their own kids. My husband's parents, they had children very young. He was in the military. They never had any help. And I'm saying this is not anything new. We've all done this for generations. We've had to work through hard times, and these times are hard for many of us. Like we said, inflation is a tax on those who can least afford it. And raise taxes at a time like this is insanity, in my humble opinion. Because eventually you run out of other people's money. That's people like us, the taxpayer. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your what you do on this.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comment. Next speaker.
Next, public comment, Emily Free.
Thank you. My address, Emily Fritz, my address is 1433 Woodbury Drive. First, I want to welcome our two new members. I think y'all will be great additions to this council, so I'm looking forward. I have a tendency to show up to these meetings, so you may see me again someday. I wanted to encourage you guys to adopt the rollback rate. That will keep the taxes at a level rate. Because for the reasons that previous speakers have said, the public just cannot afford it. I have a friend whose business was damaged so badly during the tornado that he's decided to close the business, but he still owns the building. Now, I don't know what he plans to do with that building, but if he still owns that building, he's going to get a nice, big, fat property bill on a building that's producing no income. That's going to be hard on him. And there are other people who are in the same situation. That the tornado disproportionately hit middle and low income neighborhoods. I can still see tarps over town. People are really struggling. In the 3 years this organization has existed, you've collected $22 million from the public. And with all due respect, and I know all your intentions are good, but with all due respect, I don't think we've had $22 million of results. There needs to be some course correction on how you spend. I believe if you sharpen your pencil and spend the money wiser, you can do even more without having to raise taxes. Frankly, you've funded some low quality vendors. I think that can change. Spend money on a lot of things that are not actually services, like hand holding the vendors. I painted my house I had my house painted. I didn't do it. I had my house painted a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't train the painters. I hired some painters who already knew how to do it. So if a vendor can't do the job, then perhaps they shouldn't get a contract. Times are tough with people these days. People simply cannot afford a tax increase. And again, I think you can do even more if you change your course. I also want to say that I don't think everything's all bad. I have seen y'all make some improvements in the last year or so, and I do feel better about this organization than I did a couple of years ago. But I still think you you can do more with the same amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Next speaker.
Next public comment, Mr. Brent Pitcher. Pitchers.
Sure.
Rick Bashard, 2211 Ellicott Drive, and no, I did not go to high school with Rocky. I did, however, go to high school with his dad, who I greatly admired. Ladies and gentlemen, I offer a respectful reminder that the authority to tax property is an awesome power. It is a power that impacts every man, every woman, every child in Leon County without exception. Whether homeowners or business owners or renters, everyone feels the negatives of higher taxes and less money in their pockets. And conversely, although it's rare, everyone feels the positive impact of lower taxes and more money left in their pockets. The power to raise a millage rate is the equivalent of being able to slip into everyone's home, place of business, or apartment in the dead of night or in broad daylight and take the spare change jar off the dresser or the piggy bank from the kids' room and use that money for purposes other than what the taxpayer or the kid may have had in mind. I simply ask that as you consider the financial needs of the Children's Services Council, please do so in tandem with due consideration for the personal needs and wants of those who will ultimately foot the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next speaker.
There's no more public comment.
Thank you. Council members, we now find ourselves in the consent agenda. There are no items to review. No motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I will move the consent agenda.
Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those approved unanimously. Next, we have general council update. Sorry.
Sorry, I forgot to do that. So, on the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman, I just, because those items were developed before I was a member of the committee, I believe it would be appropriate if I reported an abstain vote on that.
No. We would only accept an abstention if there were a conflict of interest. The information was forwarded to you, you're just accepting the information for our records purposes. But other than that, that's the only time, as I recall, that we do an abstention if there's a conflict of interest.
Okay.
All right, we'll now move to general council update.
Yes, no, nothing to report other than Mr. Rowe is not here, so it's good to see you all again. But
It's good to see
it's
you.
a good day not to have your lawyer bring anything up.
That's a good. All right.
I do have something.
Yes, sir.
And if it maybe needs to go somewhere else, that's fine. I wanted to bring this up about the bylaws. Since we do have new members, I had to go back and just check, but I thought we had discussed the executive committee or bylaws committee, and it's been combined now. Back in 2023, we had a discussion around updating the bylaws to articulate new council member orientation. I could not, and also a discussion around a signed acknowledgement for new council members. And the newest bylaws that I could see were December. I could not find that information.
We'll double check that.
Councilor Brown.
And also on the bylaws, Council Member Mitchell already brought it up around the Roberts rules. I did go back and look at our bylaws. So the policy around the minute timeframes, that's not in the bylaws, that's located somewhere else on another document.
It's in a resolution.
It's in a resolution, okay. And then I was wondering, in the bylaws, it does reference that if something is not X, Y, and Z, like it will revert back to what Robert's rules say. And I did not know. I definitely want it for what's upcoming, because we did entertain at the last couple of trims when we were doing I yield my time. I would like it in my opinion, I think it needs to be, very clear what the policy is on that and us follow that and for.
So if I may, Mr. Chair. So what we will do is, that was a policy that was adopted, it was actually adopted before I joined the council. We will go back and pull that policy out, review that, and if we need, and provide to the council more explicit directions on the public comment. We can bring that to you for your review and approval, and if you approve that one, we would approve it by resolution and it would be an amended policy. So we will do that for July.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Seeing nothing further, we'll move to committee reports and we'll start with Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr.
Finance and budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item one is the presentation of the audit that was done by Purvis Gray. The folks at Purvis Gray are not able to be here. They have presented to the budget committee. I think the most important thing that you can take from it, and I know it was in the backup, but it bears repeating publicly, and that is this year, they have provided what is an unmodified and clean opinion. Ms. Fritz said that she's been watching the council for 3.5 years, as have I, and we have a long way to go to be perfect, but we have made improvements, and the audit suggests that. So again, you have the audit in your backup. There, I sat on a lot of committees and an awful lot of councils, and I don't remember especially how we started and where we've gotten. Seeing an audit report as positive as it was. So I congratulate really Sika, you and your team for kind of keeping us on the straight and narrow so that we do have an unmodified and clean. Item two. Oh, yes.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we do need to have a motion and a second to accept
Each one of these. Okay, all right.
the audit.
Mr. Chair, I turn it back over to you.
All right.
I will move the audit.
There's a second. Properly seconded that we accept the fiscal year 2023 independent financial audit. Are there any comments coming from board? Yes. Vice Chair.
We have comments tonight. I apologize. From the audit, I do have a request, when appropriate. From the audit, I did see the information about the one grantee that will have to return funds to us. And that's gonna be page 57. And I would like to request, when and if appropriate, I think it could be valuable for us as the council, a high level overview on the situation. And for example, did our processes work? So in other words, I know we hired folks to, if you will, monitor. So, I'd like to hear the results of if there were actions that, staff took that, located that issue or how they came about. I think it'd be valuable for us to hear that from the team, because this would be the first, I think, of this occurring, if appropriate. But I also would like to know, from that discussion, if there were things that maybe could have been processes better, implemented as far as even our whole process around the decision to fund or the process, of information we put in RPAs or, I think it'd be valuable to learn more about that particular situation when it's appropriate. That's all I have.
Any other comments? Ms. Green?
Yes, absolutely. And just, so this, and I'll do a quick high level, I won't put spell there. So this particular provider was in our second round of summer funding, and presented a fine midsummer report. So in last summer's funding, they had 2 reports. As you know, we fund and give part of the money at the signing of the contract. Then when they submit their first report, if it comes back okay, all the documentation is in place, numbers check out, then we will give them that second disbursement. This happened after the second disbursement, and we tried to work with that provider several times, and I'll go through that at the appropriate time. We did have a chance, or I did have a chance to brief our treasurer on that situation. So he was aware of that situation and knew that that would come here. But we did want to give that provider an opportunity to repay that fund, those funds. And that opportunity expires August 15th. So if we have not gotten those funds by August 15th, then we will work with our legal department and the chair to decide how we move forward on that.
Do you have a process for debarment? Fall out of compliance?
Oh, yes, our CIPs are very clear about the compliance that must be met in order to continue applying for and subsequently receiving funds. And all of our funded entities must sign and acknowledge those guidelines, and it is clearly stated in all of their contracts. The one thing that we had not done, and that was at the direction of the council, was make certain meetings and trainings mandatory. And so that was in the beginning when we started this process. I think that we are at a point where we want to discuss that again. Most entities, at least in my experience, if you want to apply for that funding and during post funding award, there are trainings that you must participate in those trainings and attest to that, so that when you fall short of the contract, we have the documentation to show that you.
So we're going to update after August 15th.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions regarding the audit? Right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor for accepting the audit? How about saying aye?
Aye.
Just
Aye.
a comment from, thank you, ma'am. We heard you. Just one final comment. Congratulations. You and your team have certainly been great stewards, as exemplified by this. I can tell you, superintendent does laps school board meeting. He makes the announcement about our great audits also here for the last 3 years without any findings. So congratulations. That's a job well done. All right, continue, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr.
And
Chair.
also to the finance budget committee for your oversight in this process as well. That's you. This Commissioner Cummings and Superintendent Hannah, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for your efforts as well.
And now you, because,
Huh?
and now you, as chair, you get to sit
Oh,
with us.
what were you? I got my degree in English.
We'll teach you about it. Don't you worry.
And we have a new mathematician here.
We had a good one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's real good. with figures.
Item 2 of the Finance and Budget Committee is a budget amendment that is occurring occasionally throughout the year. We will amend the budget more often than not to appropriately place an expenditure. If we see an expenditure is occurring on a more regular basis than we initially anticipated, we will build a line item. I'm going to go through 9 of these very quickly with you. But if you're looking at this, it's got yellow at the top, green, blue, and a lot of peach. Throw that peach word out loosely. I don't know what you call that. As treasurer, I've gone through all of this. There is one item that is part of the amendment that it's the first one. And there was some confusion when for Ms. Marsteller and Mr. Johnson. Some time ago, when we created our current budget, we created a fund that was for contract services for Ms. Green to utilize. And that fund was to provide for legal services, accounting services, community outreach, it's sort of anything she wanted. I mean, there were some specific criteria, but it was that fun. And that's how we voted on it. But in fairness, you could, and I went back and I listened to all the tapes, and I was very clear that I was against the creation of any more FTE. There was, the confusion lies in, can you take the contract dollars and create an FTE? And what was brought to the finance committee 2 months ago was an amendment that we voted on, that at that meeting, I said, you know, I've got a question. I'm not sure I know the answer, and so I'm gonna wait a little bit. I wanna find out the answer. And I went through all the tapes, and I came to the conclusion that we did not authorize the creation of an FTE in those contract dollars. We did authorize Ms. Green to spend them as she believed was necessary to meet the obligations and operations of the CSC. So we voted to put it on the budget amendment 2 months ago. I went ahead and said, let's go ahead and move forward. Let me get my questions answered, and we can always remove it. I'm gonna keep going, but I would really recommend that we have 9 basic amendments that we approve, 8 of them, and that one we not approve, but that's my position. And I'm happy to answer any questions on one, as I'm sure Ms. Green will as well. But continuing, item 2 is one of those line items. Bill.com is how we make payments through the Children's Services Council. And again, because I think it's Ms. Snyder, 75 cents each time we pay a bill, we wanted this to show up as a line item so that the public knows how much are we paying to pay. So that is amendment number 2. Amendment number 3 is ever so slight, you know, $40, $50, something like that. But there are 2 fees that we pay for the collection of the ad valorem and special district taxes when we pay to local government. Item 4 is an increase in the cost of Zoom. Again, ever so slight. I think it went from 800 to, can you help me out?
Went from 760 to 790.
Thank you. Okay. I know it may seem silly, but I will say this for the folks who took their time to come here, and I know I speak for all of my fellow council members. May seem a little kind of silly at $39, and we're discussing it, but it's important that you know we're discussing it, and we're not just spending it without talking about it and thinking about it. Item 5 is the equipment rental, and this is not an additional bill. This is a bill that we actually spent the money last year, but the bill came late. And so we are amending this year's bill, this year's budget to pay for last year's equipment rental. Again, at the end, after I do it, you guys ask any questions. Item 6 is one of those line items again, and that's our managed IT services. It's not dramatically huge, but what has happened up to this point is it's found itself into in a miscellaneous bucket. This is specific as to how much we are paying for an entity to manage our IT so that the public is well aware. Item 7 is a rent estimate, and this has as much to do with a new contract that we've entered into for the Family Resource Center. As it's part of their contract that we pay. It's sort of funny money because it's really Children's Services Council money that we're paying the Children's Home Society to manage the Family Resource Center, and part of that is rent because they are utilizing our lease here in this building, again, in an effort to see, will a family resource center concept work, and starting it small before we go paying a lot of money. So the rent estimate is an increase. Item 8 is actually a reduction here. And that is the special investment, what does SIP stand for? Special investment?
Small investments for program success.
There you go. This is the SIPS funding. Again, Simone and Brent, this is an opportunity for small organizations that have never received grants to get small grants, $15,000 or less, that meet part of the mission of the council. What we found was the first time we put this program out there, there were a lot of interested parties, but once you get it, you can't keep coming back for more. Well, that list started dwindling down, and at Ms. Green's recommendation, and one that was supported by the council, we skipped a round. We do have a round here. We do have a round here that we're going to consider tonight, but we haven't spent all that we had originally budgeted for. So again, we're amending the budget. Doesn't happen often, so maybe I should spend more time on it, but to show receipt of funds. And last but not least is item 9, which is the SAMIS. SAMIS is the entity or the product that we buy through the coalition of LCs, the coalition of CSCs and trusts. And this product is that which allows us to keep track of the dollars we're spending, but also keep track of how the vendors are spending the money, whether or not they're meeting the requirements of the contract. If they said that they were going to serve 250 people, did they serve 251 or 237? That is what SAMIS is. For everyone's knowledge, much like the other item that we're amending for IT services, they sent us the bill. We got the bill. Well, we didn't get the bill. And then they called us and said, hey, where's our money? Which I would too, if somebody owed me, money. And we said, well, we don't know what you're talking about. And they provided it to us. Again, we are simply amending. We are not spending any more. We are just putting it in we're paying the bill and showing you that we're paying it in the current fiscal year's funding. And those are the basics of the 9 items for the budget amendment. And I am happy to answer any questions about any and all of them.
This is really good. So can we go back to the first one with the contracted services and staffing, diversion to staffing, and how we reconcile that issue?
So yes, I can help you. What you're seeing in the amendment is a whole bunch of movement of money from the contracted services to the creation of the FT. With that comes payroll taxes, health benefits, life insurance. My suggestion is we revert it back to contract services where Ms. Green can hire somebody on a contracted basis, just not as an FTE.
So it isn't someone we've already hired.
No, sir. We're not firing somebody, right? Right. In fairness, if you remember, we took an existing position and essentially created more of a quality management position with it. So it was Ms. Clay's position, and essentially what we're doing is making that I know I'm messing this up, quality management, well, quality assurance.
Program and quality assurance specialist.
See, I knew quality was in there. So Ms. Clay will still be in that role. The role that Ms. Clay has functioned in since the inception of the council.
This role.
Yes, will, again, if you accept the amendment exactly as it is, it will be funded as an FTE. If you take my recommendation, we would at least try to begin with. We can create an FTE anytime we want, but try to see if that's something we could do under contracted services. Ms. Green was going to.
Wait a minute. We're talking about Ms. Clay changing her from an FTE to a contracted employee?
No, sir. No, sir. She'll still be in an FTE role. What we're saying is the functions that she's currently performing, we will hire somebody from outside who is not part of our organization using the contract dollars, because that's what we gave Ms. Green to do. The budget amendment contemplates moving the dollars from contract services to creating an FTE. With an FTE comes the additional expenses that go with it, but nobody's in it.
So we're suggesting that she maintains an FTE, but a person that replaces the responsibilities for which she is now currently in would be a contracted person.
Yes, sir.
Rather than a full-time employee.
Right, and seeing.
And wherein lies the benefit in that for us?
So the benefit is that we give it a shot to see, are there people out there that a shot at working for a Children's Services Council, a Health and Human Services Council, at an hourly rate. I shared with Ms. Green, my firm. We have people who perform similar functions of scheduling, of sort of running daily operations on a contracted basis. And we hire law school students, we hire, in this case, folks who would be specializing in maybe a master's of social work or even their undergraduate. The benefit is a financial benefit where we have two great universities that we could pull from, and those students don't require health insurance, life insurance, and we don't pay payroll taxes.
Yeah, but what was it? I'm curious to know what was the discussion that was had by the other members, because there was a recommendation for this. And I understand your consideration, but
there was
others members.
There was no discussion. What it was, but the only discussion was me saying, we as a council said you can't create any additional FTE. We're giving you more money in the contracted services pot. And that was something the council did a year ago. When it came to the budget committee, the only person who raised something was me, where I was like, I have a question, and it was not, I didn't specify it was about this, but I really didn't want to discuss it until I really knew the facts. And I just went back, I looked at the minutes, I looked at the tape, and Ms. Green asked me to relook at a tape that I started with, and I did. And I sort of came to the same conclusion, and that is, let's give it a try. I mean, we don't, here we are talking about how much money we're spending or not spending. It seemed to me to make sense to see, can we hire somebody on a contract basis, as opposed to spending a lot of money to bring someone in, again, establishing an FTE where the council did not agree to establish anymore.
I remember one time, I had that issue.
This is not unrelated to the issue that's being discussed, Mr. Chairman.
So I remember having these discussions, and I recommended that we give her a budget and that she figures it out. Whether I hire a person, whether I get WS, whatever number we give her, she has to live within that budget. Because I think what I hear now is we're about to promote one of the FTE. So that's going to be an additional cost, right? That's coming out of somewhere, right? And then we want to backfill, go back and fill that position as it currently exists. I don't know how we get there. I would just, instead of going through this, just rather give her X amount of money to spend on salaries and benefits, and then that's it. And if she decides she needs more increase, then she comes back with an increase. What is the difference between, how much does she have that did we agree to with contracted services? You know the number?
Yeah, I think
And
it's
what-
100 and, remember you said to me, you looked at me and you said, you're giving her that much? And I am kind of surprised that the tightwad of the group, at the time, you were, turns out, more tight than I was. You said, you're giving her that much? I wouldn't have given her that much. And a little laughter, and we voted on it. But what we did was we voted on a budget that included an established number of FTE with the benefits that go with them, and an established budget for contracted services.
So what we didn't do was, if she wanted to promote any of her existing people and cap their salary, she could raise their salaries and promote them. It's an FTE, whether you're a secretary one or whether you're the CFO.
Well, you could take the existing position. There was a lengthy discussion of the number of FTE that would be created at the CSC. Ms. Green wanted more. And again, a healthy and lengthy discussion ensued, and we came back at the next meeting, and the resolution after the budget committee meeting, the budget committee met, was to sort of follow the same number of FTE, but to give her a more substantial.
I understand that. And so how much did we give her in contract? You said 100?
No, 190, I think is what it is. Am I right there, Dina?
And does that include Holly?
194.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot more than one position
Oh, yeah.
in contracted services, right?
This was the one. Do you remember that meeting? I was originally under the impression that it was, to Superintendent Hannah's point, I was under the impression that it wasn't just contract. I thought it was just a budget. And so my question now is, what did we vote on? Was it contract, or was it a budget for FTE? Like what, I can't remember what the budget brought to us this evening.
So at the time, I had requested an FTE. The committee agreed to collapse the contracted services such that we had to pay for accounting services, had to pay for general counsel services, and then contracted services would be, the total was 294 to include all three of those areas. So the special projects manager is included in that contract staffing services. What I was referring to, and maybe erroneously so, was during that budget meeting where you all passed this and then it went to the council. Councilmember Hannah specifically said, if she finds the need that she needs an FTE, she would pull it out of contract and reduce the contract money and use that money to get the FTE. When I spoke with Councilmember Mitchell, he said that I had interpreted that incorrectly. And so since you all had already passed the budget, he and I had a discussion, and I'm fine with whatever you all passed. We just brought it because it had already been passed by the Budget and Finance Committee, but that's what I did. I had taken the money out of contract services and put it into FTEs, thinking that I had the authority to do that, given that meeting. After speaking with Mr. Mitchell, I realized or discovered that I really didn't have that authority.
So so my follow-up to that question would be, because I get with the FTA, right? The FRS, there's the benefits, there's insurance, that's an additional cost. Is that somehow incorporated into
Yes.
that?
So when I moved it, I only moved it for the 4 months. That would be the rest of this year. And it was the 4 months of everything that goes into an FTE. And my plan into next year was, in order to keep that position, reduce my contract money. So it would, in my mind, it would hold the budget harmless because I'd be moving the money. Now, I want to emphasize that that was my interpretation. Mr. Mitchell let me know that that wasn't the correct interpretation.
Well,
And so,
in fairness, Mr. Chair, it wasn't that I questioned the interpretation. Again, human beings can hear the same information and come to a different conclusion. When you pass a budget that has a set number of FTE, that's the budget. And if you have, it would be like a state agency where you have 100 FTE that are approved, but you also have contracted services in the form of OPS. That's what we did. We adopted a budget with a set number of FTE. And we offered to Ms. Green, who had asked for additional FTE, we did not approve them. We gave her, and the 100,000 I think was for the general counsel services. I could be wrong, but the 194 was grants, community outreach, the Holly position, accounting. I can't remember the rest of them. And it was, all of those are contracted. We don't establish an FTE in them. There is nothing that prohibits this council from establishing an FTE. I just think that as we are talking about spending dollars that people clearly are watching us, and I'm glad they are, that we give it a try to see, and I shared this with Ms. Green, if it doesn't work, if you can't find someone or you find someone and you can't keep someone and you want to come back to the council and ask for the establishment of an FTE, which we considered but didn't approve before, then that makes perfectly good sense. But I think you first have to give it a try. And I can just tell you, as a pretty successful firm here in town, we've done it and it's worked really well.
All right, let's bring this in. All right. We have a recommendation coming from,
Mr. Chair, did you have?
It was just before we voted on it, I wanted to applaud the treasurer for the explanations. They were all excellent. I'm just trying to get down. I understand reallocation of budget money, but when I'm looking at the last page, which I believe is page 70, I'm just trying to understand of those reallocations, is there any adjustment of the approved budget that's been certified to the board, or are those just allocations within the existing budget, the different categories?
Mr. Chair, may I?
yes,
Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah.
May I? So, during, trying to not dumb this down, but trying to make sure I explain it so it can be understood.
before you answer this question, can you break down that question? Because I was trying to
Yeah,
understand.
because I'll make it very easy. On that last page, I think I'm looking at final budget. And I don't know the answer to whether this is what was certified is the 9,633,960, and the proposed amended budget is 9,576,87.
Yes.
So, you know, we're moving towards a reduced budget. I'm just trying to understand in all those movements, they appear to me to just be movements in categories, and we're not shifting in authority for additional spend.
So you.
By category perhaps, but not in total.
Yes, so you're correct. The 9.6 million is what was certified.
Okay.
When we went through our trim process. Once we do that, we have the statutory ability to amend the budget depending on the revenues that come in and the programming that is approved. And so to your point, there was some operational costs as Mr. Mitchell very well explained. There were some operational costs that we needed to allot for, some increases, some program decreases, and then some program increases again. So it's just moving that money, and then by way of this, it's reducing. Let me say, it's okay. Moving the contract money back doesn't affect this bottom line. So it would still come in it would still come in at 9.5. Yeah, so it won't affect that bottom.
What I would like to suggest is that we accept a motion for Budget and Finance Committee report for the budget amendments of items 2 through 9. And then we can deal with the first budget item solely by itself. We can then finalize the discussion. There'll be a motion either to permit the change or not to permit the change, but we did with the already existing ones that we're all on the same page for. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Set numbers 2 through 9. Is there a motion for that?
I will move items 2 through 9 of the amended budget.
I'll second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? All right, we on second. We heard 2 seconds. I heard second here, second.
Good job.
I'll choose care, with Mr. We'll give you your first second. How about that?
Now, okay, so we're good on that. Now back to item 1.
Yeah.
Is there a, vote on it? Well, we're back to budget amendment number 1. Is there a motion?
Oh, you're saying vote on the. That through 9.
We've already voted 2 through 9.
No, you got,
All
you
in
did the
favor.
first and the second. We gotta have public comment.
Oh, I'm
Then
sorry,
you vote.
excuse me, public comment, yes,
There's no public comment.
all right.
Then you can move either consensus or whatever on that.
On 2 and 9, is there, it's been properly moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Items 2 through 9 have passed. Thank you, we heard you too, Ms. Bostelaire. All right, now back to item 1. Is there a motion for that?
I will move that we don't accept the amendment to the budget and move the fund, leave the funds precisely where they were in contracted funds, which gives Ms. Green the flexibility to hire as she needs it on a contracted basis.
Second. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I'm just, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, just for clarification. In approving Mr. Mitchell's motion, the executive director still has that flexibility. Okay. I just want to make sure.
It's just not the establishment
Oh,
of
but FTE.
full-time equivalent.
Right, okay.
Right, which means then, and I hate, and it's not my intention to put my finger on the scale, but I have a problem with carpetbaggers and persons who come in when we have the opportunity. Even Rocky knows where I say they make these same, and you said that's one of my favorite words from history, carpetbaggers, because they don't bring the same level of investment as those persons who come in as a full-time employee. And I think, as the superintendent has described, if we have made the amendment whereby she can make the change and move the monies in the budget as prescribed, if she has a preference to have an FTE, a person who she can more than likely count on to work for her long term, why would we deny her in that if there is no budgetary implications that create another? I understand that in certain situations in offices and in different circumstances and climate where that may work, but our director has made it clear that she would prefer to have someone who she can count on to be a part of her team as a part of the long term. And if that's her preference, I don't see why we would then use the budget to try to operate in a way different than what she thinks is in the best interest of running the office, particularly when there are no budgetary constraints. I mean, budgetary considerations in the creation of her preferred methodology for hiring an employee to manage what we know will be an essential function of the office.
So here's the answer to the question. There is a budgetary factor here where this, if I heard the public comment, and I believe I heard it well, it was first try to do to the best of your ability more with what you've got. And when we've given Ms. Green resources and we say, okay, you can move them, we can hire somebody at the same hourly rate that a full-time equivalent would be without having to pay additional costs. That cost would stay in the contracted services budget, and that is doing the same or more with less. Like I said, it doesn't work. And we had so many carpetbaggers and we don't have somebody that's committed to staying, then, okay, we come back and we say, hey, we really need a full-time equivalent. We tried it and it just didn't work out. I'm just telling you, you have 120,000 state employees in maybe not all in this town, but a good number of state employees and a huge number of OPS. And those OPS aren't carpetbaggers. They're hard workers. And again, my small firm, but we seem to do pretty well. And it also gives someone an opportunity that they may not get because this, I don't want to say it's an entry-level position, but it's a little more than, it's a professional entry-level position, and it gives them the opportunity to be in an area that they are, that they love. Hopefully, it's social services, and yeah, but there is a financial
I understand.
issues,
Mr. Mitchell. For me, and we'll take a vote unless there are any other comments. I just think that making a decision as to how I can tell you in our situation, I'm a board member, but operations and management of the district belongs to the superintendent. I set policy, I create a budget, and with that budget, he's then permitted to make the decisions in the best interest of the district. I equip him with that budget based upon what his recommendations are. And then after that, I leave it to him to manage. And I just don't, and what he does not let me do, I don't get to pick principals, I don't get to pick teachers, I don't get to do any of the hiring, because with that budget, that is his responsibility. And I think if we now go to deciding, well, no, you can't have an FTE, but you can't have a consultant, I think that goes into operations and management. And that's where I believe it's a slippery slope. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I still think that even moving down, however the vote goes tonight, it's still not clear to me if whoever the person is in that position, is the position right now that we are establishing that all FTEs, any future FTEs have to be approved through the council or not? That's what now I'm like not clear, you know what I mean? So
to Mr. Jones's point, it's right, they give the superintendent a set number of FTE. That's what we did when we approved the budget last year. There's nothing that precludes us from establishing more FTE in the future. If the council grows and our needs grow, there's nothing that prohibits it. But the budget that is adopted on an annual basis includes in that budget a set number of FTE with a set number of a set dollar amount attached to their benefits. And when the new budget comes out, and it's we'll discuss it at next month's meeting, you will see one of the things that goes up in price is healthcare.
I'm gonna save us some money right now.
My man.
Oh my God, I'm freezing.
Did you see that, Mr. Marsteller, where he raised the temperature to save a few dollars? We're trying to pay for salary and benefits here.
We're gonna hold these meetings to candlelight here on that.
Oh, I'm freezing.
We'll have a wood belly of.
I'll come casual next time.
We're gonna have a wood stove in this meeting next time. If there are no additional comments, just Mayor.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair. That's okay, Mr. Chair. No, I was looking through the amendments and heard the discussions. And I remember our discussions about creating FTEs and perhaps looking at the budget and what have you. But I think we need to just try to see if we can have a workable compromise. And I think a workable compromise, perhaps at this point, is to approve the motion on the floor, allow the executive director to advertise or see if, we've got a Holly here, so if we can find another Holly. But if not, I think it can come back to the board. We can't find another Holly. But it's not, the vote today does not totally cut off an FTE. I think if there is a problem with finding a qualified person that fits in with the organization that can do the work, great. But if not, we've got a resource. Come back to the board. We vote on establishing another FTE and we've got the funds and we keep it moving. But I just think we need to just sort of meet each other halfway on this and sort of compromise. And that sounds like a workable solution.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Council, Commissioner. Yes, Ms. Marcelier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to agree with Councilmember Cummings' suggestion. I think that for purposes of deciding how many FTE, or I should say how many additional FTE we should have serving the council and the residents of Leon County, I do think that that is something to be decided when we're looking at setting, next fiscal year's budget. I don't think that adding an FTE is something that is necessarily appropriate for a mid-year budget amendment. Though I do understand, having been in state government, how challenging it can be when you have a position and a need, how challenging it can be to fill it with OPS or with contracted services. But I think, of course, I don't admittedly understand the scope of services that we need here, for someone to fulfill. But I would hope that we can at least get those services and those functions taken care of until we can get to the point where we're looking at next fiscal year's budget. And we can really have the full conversation that, yes, we actually do need an extra FTE for this. Because let's remember, this is not just as simple as moving contracted services money into salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits is going to be a recurring cost, right? Contracted services, though we might be able to say today that we intend to reduce them today and keep them reduced for next fiscal year, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So I would recommend that we keep the budget on this item as is for now. And as Councilmember Cummings has suggested, let's allow and enable our executive director to see, if she can indeed field some qualified applicants for an OPS-like position. And if not, then I think we have time to decide whether we want a full new FTE.
Thank you, madam. All right. We have a motion and a second on item 1. What's that motion? Would you mind repeating your motion?
Yes, sir, that that as it comes to item 1, we do not amend the budget, but we leave the budget as it is.
All right. Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment. One public comment.
No. Does he fill out, does he have to fill out a card?
No.
But
He doesn't do it from his seat.
He had to come out with
I'll stand up. I speak to people all the time. I'm not opposed to that.
State your name.
I own a business and I've hired volunteers from FSU. I'm in the home medical and clinical business. There are many students that need volunteer hours for their graduate degree. And they work for free. Legally can do that and they're phenomenal. I don't really know what y'all's business does or what you need a person for, but you might want to consider that. FAMU, Florida State, you might find a lot of good people out there that want to learn this business. That you can finally get multiple people to do multiple things at zero cost. So I would probably consider that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we move to the last item for consideration, part of the Finance and Budget Committee. The presentation of trend evaluation and village chart. Mr. Bishop.
I'm sorry, Oh, yes, the great one. I am sorry. I'm ready to vote on SIPs. Let me do this. If you would. Just pass a few of those around. If any member of the public would like one, feel free to come on up so you can see what we're talking about. No.
Ms. Marsteller, I'm gonna email it to you right now, okay?
What are you emailing?
This is, this is to get your sort of intellectual juices flowing for the July meeting where we are going to talk about the millage rate that we will send to the property appraiser to send, or pardon me, the tax collector to send out as part of the trim notice. And all I wanted to do was to kind of go through the possibilities.
Okay.
If you remember, and Mr. Johnson, Ms. Marsteller, for your sake, when we first, the authority of this board is to collect up to 0.5 mils from property taxes in Leon County. In our first big vote of this council, we decided to collect 0.375. And we did that for 2 years. Last year, because some of the, we had money in the, in our accounts. We were beginning to spend money, but not at quite the pace we were collecting it. And well, not at the pace we were collecting it. We decided to roll back the rate from 0.375 to 0.3477. There was some discussion at that point. There were people who thought that we were taking money from kids, or we ended up even rolling back the rate. We ended up raising additional money. Much of that reason was an environment where the world knew that interest rates were going to be going up, and a lot of people were quickly buying a house if they were going to buy a house and locking in a rate. What that did was, if you sold your house that was, you bought it, or was being taxed at 300,000 and you sold it to 500,000, now that the county is collecting $200,000, pardon me, a millage multiplied by that $200,000 difference. It was an exceptional year in terms of property sales. At the same time, there was a demand for new product. And so Leon County experienced, not like the rest of the state, but an increase in a new product. Add a new product, it's whatever the tax value is, multiplied by whatever your millage rate is, you collect more. As I said, we rolled it back, we used the rollback as though we were trying to get $0 more, but we collected a little more than $600,000 more. Again, slightly different year than we have had this year because we've experienced high interest rates. And so the housing market has slowed down. Yes, there are new houses being built, not the number of this time last year. Anyhow, what I've done is for the public to know and for the council members to know, because this will be a lively discussion next month that I hope the public shows up to. I don't care which side you're on. 3 minutes, come tell us what's on your mind. We've offered 4. Doesn't mean you have to pick one of these 4, but we've offered 4 millage rates. We've offered the max, which is 0.5, and you can see the collection. We've offered a rollback. So those are the 2 extremes. We've offered what the rate was last year, and we've offered what the rate was the 2 prior years. Again, this is sort of a take home, talk about, discuss, but what the numbers that follow underneath each column are, we created buckets. Here's how much, if the millage rate is this amount, here's how much we'll collect. we take 5%, pull it aside, so it's a 95%. What are the reserves? That's at 5%. Obviously, the more we collect, the more the reserves go up. The estimated administrative costs don't change at all, regardless of what the millage rate is. I also put two other buckets here, and I want to explain those two buckets. You'll see about halfway down the page is a recurring programming of summer, which is something we have funded since the creation of the council, and SAMUS, that product I talked about in the past. It is likely that we will continue summer funding. I have no reason to believe that we won't. I also don't have any reason to believe that we will. That's the will of the council. But I wanted to give you an idea of what we have spent in the past. So that's the bucket. Doesn't mean it can't go up. It doesn't mean it can't go down. But it gives you a sense of what it is. In addition, the last box there is existing programs whose funding will expire at the end of this fiscal year. Many of these programs have been successful. Some of the mentoring programs you'll see in that bucket. That's what that is. Again, it doesn't mean it can't be more. It doesn't mean it can't be less. It just gives you an idea of what we have spent historically, and human beings tend to do this year what they did last year. It's just, so I wanted to give you a sense. The bottom number is if we did nothing different, each year we have spent a little bit more. Remember, we were incredibly conservative when we first began because we didn't know what were our goals? How did we want to spend the money? Were our priorities early childhood, which has become the priority of this council? So instead of just going out and spending money, we planned, we plotted, and made proposals. It is my opinion that we are likely to spend a little. It is likely that we will spend more in this coming year on programs, not administrative costs, but programs than we have in the past. Again, open for discussion as to how you all want to spend the money. All I've done is record it for you so that you've got an idea of what we've done in the past.
My first question.
Yes,
is, as I see these 4 rows, what is our current and what were our previous?
so we are at this current fiscal year that we're in is 0.3, I'm sorry, the second one from the left, 0.3477. The other 2 years before we did the rollback was 0.375. And by rolling it back from 0.375 to 0.3477, again, that's why I talked about the uniqueness of that previous calendar year and fiscal year, is we ended up generating more money than we had with the 0.375. Oh, by the way, if we had kept the millage rate at 0.375, we would have raised even that much more money. But what we are working under right now is 0.3477, Mr. Chair.
So the voters approved up to 0.5. You and I arm wrestled that first year, and we came to a draw.
Yes,
and we
sir.
settled on 0.375. We rolled back last year to 0.3477, but still generated some new money. What is being asked by the majority of the commenters tonight is to roll back to 0.3153, which would actually, we lose $100, right?
Yeah.
If that's okay. Which would give us the same amount next year we had this year, which is basically 7.6. And if you're funded the summer and these other things the same, which is about $5 million, $4.8 million, we still have about $1 million left for new projects, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that prohibits it? by law and by statute, is there anything that prohibits us from putting this issue to bed now? Or do we have to wait until?
We do have to wait where we advertise it so that the public who's interested. I mean, I'm appreciative of everybody who showed up tonight.
Yeah.
So there's sort of three hearings that happen. The first hearing is not really a hearing, that's our next meeting where, again, at our budget committee meeting, you remember, I said it like 17 times. Please, public, if you have a position on this, come early. We're gonna vote in July as to what will go on the trim notice. Once it's on the trim notice, then we have two public hearings where we both approve the budget and we approve that.
But we
rate.
can't vote, we couldn't potentially vote tonight on what will go on the trim notice for public hearing?
No, because we haven't noticed it.
Just like second reading.
Yeah.
Or first reading.
You're saying we're gonna vote in July for what will go on for the public hearings,
Yes,
right?
yes. And if you remember, well,
Can't do it prior to July.
correct. Well, it was based on the property appraiser tells us
Right.
what are the tax rolls?
Which is what
What's
these
his
numbers are
estimate
based
on? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to clarify that, the reason why is you have to notice that you're going to be voting on a preliminary trim. And we did not
Not a
do that.
preliminary, you have to notice a preliminary.
You have to notice a preliminary, which is what we would do in July, which we've done every July.
Right, okay.
We would do that in July, and then literally the day after that meeting, I have to report that to the property appraiser's office for them to put in the notices that will
Which
go
will
out.
go out for the public hearing.
Right. And the other thing is that one of the reasons we haven't done this in the past is like I said to Ms. Marsteller, I just want to get your intellectual juices flowing. We haven't done this in the past and we sort of put it in the agenda and everybody shows up. Not to say that, 3 weeks more you're gonna suddenly have the final answer, but this way we can start thinking about it. What does it mean?
Did you have a question?
I just wanted a point of clarification. And so this concept of rollback is just what we know today needed to be, what would the millage rate need to be to generate approximately the same ad valorem collections for us? So when you did the rollback to, that you've shown on the spreadsheet that you passed out at 0.3477, that projected 7.639 million and last year. And so if we were to do a rollback to generate the same ad valorem taxes, you're estimating this 0.3153 millage rate.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for what has been a great report. All right, now, yes, ma'am.
If I may, Mr. Chair, also on page 81, Council 81 is the draft schedule for trim, and the reason it's 81 is because I forgot to put it with Mr. Mitchell's chart here, so I just put it at the end so I wouldn't have to repaginate. So on 81 is our draft, it's our trim discussion and hearing schedule. So it details all the steps that we take for trim. So as you can see, we'll have a budget meeting on July 8th. That's where the budget committee will have another discussion, and they also will get the draft operating budget for next fiscal year. And then on Thursday, July 18th, which is our governing council meeting, we will review the draft budget preliminarily. Past that, you will choose a preliminary millage rate, and then we will provide that. So here is your timeline here. For our new council members, we cannot hold our trim hearings until the school board has held theirs. We can't put our date until we know what date the school board has theirs, and that is in statute. So they are the first entity that is able to hold. So these are your dates, and we ask that you go ahead and put those on your calendar.
All right. Now, Ms. Green, we're now at 6.
To my agenda.
Let's claim.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So council members, You should have a handout that is titled SIPS Applications FY 23-24 Q3. You will see that there were 6 applicants and you were asked to provide us your 1, your 0, and 2. Those were provided to myself as well as Holly. And we agreed that we would have a recommend category, a consider category, and a not at this time category. Let me stop and make sure that Councilmember Marsteller has this.
It is posted online and I can send her a direct link if that's helpful.
Okay,
She
please,
says yes.
That's a yes.
please send her directly.
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
No problem. And so you will see that there are 2 in the recommend for 15,000 each. There are 2 in the consider for 15,000 each. And then there are 2 in the not at this time for 15,000 each. This would also be the opportunity that I will let you know, this will be the last SIPS application for this fiscal year. We will not do the application for July, August, September, so that we can compile all of the information from the previous SIP awardees, some of those outcomes, the budget, so that you can get a picture of what that did. Additionally, we will bring to you our observations and our suggestions for augmentation to this program for you to consider if you want to keep moving forward with this program. And so with that, I will turn it back over to the chair to entertain a motion regarding the SIPS application.
Was there a motion? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
May I just have, just for clarification on the summary that we have, the outcome, is that based on feedback from the council or is that from the council?
Yes.
Okay, after reviewing them.
Right, the staff only checked to ensure that they have followed all of the application guidelines and have given you the information for you to make that decision.
Okay.
And this is reflection 210, right?
Yes, so this is a reflection of the council members providing us input on the application.
Is there any discussion of
Did you guys get
motion?
it? Can I have a question? Do
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have a recommendation from the staff and the executive director, or are you all just basing it on council members' analysis? You don't have a
We
recommendation?
don't have a recommendation.
Okay.
We have allowed you all to make that decision. Okay. But we want to continue.
If I'm not mistaken, previously what we've done was those that we recommended and those that we considered and those that were not recommended were left off.
That is what you all have done.
Particularly when we've had enough money available to budget.
That is where you all have been.
Because all of these, the requested amounts is within the budgetary
yes.
constraints that we have.
Yes.
It's still around, okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had just a couple of questions for clarification. So there was a decision that was made to not consider funding SIPs for the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Could I just hear quickly what some of those considerations were?
Yes, so of course, when we first opened the SIPS application, and Mr. Mitchell mentioned this, we had lots of applications. The second round, we probably had, maybe not lots, but a nice number. By the third round, it had been cut maybe half, maybe 3/4. By this last round, these were all of our applications. And so what we surmise from that is, number one, some of the previous ones that had applied and did not get funded in those rounds were funded in that third round. So that reduces the number of applicants. And then the last thing is, this is designed to be a capacity building process. And so the application process for this is not nearly as stringent as our RFPs, ITNs, RFAs. However, with each application, through recommendations from the council, we made it a little more stringent each time. So by the time we got to this last quarter, this what quarter are we in? Third quarter. We saw that we had the 6 applications and did not even come close to the 150,000 that was allotted for this period. And so giving our staffing and the capacity and the work that we are doing with our regular contracts, we need to take a pause and look at what these 4 quarters of funding have done and allow us to get some catch up with some of our larger contracts. Additionally, we have heard just comments from some of the providers that 15 really isn't enough. We also had 4 categories, so it could be program funding, developmental funding, match funding, or sponsorship. Got no match applications in all 4. And so that tells us either the amount that we're offering for match is not large enough, or our providers don't understand what that match means. So one of our suggestions would be maybe we have you all earmark some money specifically for match and have that be ongoing. But we're going to bring you all of that coming back.
And Mr. Chairman, if I have one more point.
Yes, sir.
In reviewing each of the applicants and the information that was provided in advance, I didn't see any consideration in their application of what would have gone for program services versus administrative costs for the organizations.
So we just asked them to tell us what they want to use the money for, and then break it down according to what they say. Then the council will look at that and determine whether it's a good use of the money. I will tell you, applications where most of the money might have been going to a salary, those traditionally have gotten denied.
And the good part about what will happen in the fourth quarter, I'm sure we'll probably put it on the agenda for us to discuss it. So this was a great innovative idea, because the reality is in this market and in our community, we wanted to spur and respond to innovation. We realize that we will be able to meet the challenges and the needs found in providing services across our myriad areas of responsibility. Some of these persons are going to have to be grown. And so we realized that we needed to take a step back, look at it, see what has been the response, what has been the return on our initial investment, as well as look at what we're requiring. One of the things that no one is mentioning, and I think is also part of the reason why the number of applications has gone down. The council has done a very good job of identifying mission creep, identifying potential graft. And so subsequently, there may have been a robust response when the new money hits the street, but they realized that we were doing a very good job in our own stewardship and analysis of the applications, such that we're now getting more compelling responses. People are being more deliberate in the responses that they give us. And subsequently, I think the quality of applications has been maintained at that same time. So this time in the fourth quarter, we'll get a chance to look at what has been the return on our investment. And that way we can then also make considerations based upon what we hear from our committee members. Yes, Ms. Marceau.
I appreciate those comments and the background. I guess my question would be, and I don't disagree in concept with the desire/need to help our community develop organizations that are going to be able to carry on, right, all of these services. But I guess my question for the council is, at the end of the day, these are still taxpayer dollars. And so my question for the council is, how are we measuring our ROI? What does that look like? I don't know what that looks like. And what are we looking at when we look at the grant recipients, right? How do we know, looking at what they've done and where they're going and how they develop, like what are we looking at to see that indeed our investment the seeds that we have planted have taken root and are growing. So to, Director Green's point, maybe one day we might want to increase the dollars that we put into the SIPS program, but I, as a council member, don't know how we measure ROI for these investments.
And that's what we'll discover in the fourth quarter, when the staff brings us back the report for those persons who have already received the funds. As a part of the contract that they enter into, there are certain metrics and measurements that they have to provide in terms of what has been their impact. And before we continue to provide another quarter of funding, we wanted to get those reports back such that we can look at what has already been put on the street. And one of the reasons that we realized that we needed to do this, as you are aware, this community already had a CHSP process, right? So we wanted to, and they were already funding what we would describe as the usual suspects. When we started the CSC, even prior to my coming on board, we wanted to look at what was already currently existing and then create a brand new paradigm based upon the intellect that was provided us through our own analysis of the deliverables being made and the impacts already being made by existing programs to create brand new investment categories and priorities. And subsequently, as a part of that, we saw that there was a lack already existing in meeting what we knew were already issues of great concern. So that's why we made this investment in SIPS, because we realized that there were a lot of great innovative ideas found there in the community, particularly those persons who were in grassroots and providing those services, but they had great intention, but might need some capacity building. So now we'll see what has been the return of those seeds that you described in the fourth quarter when the staff brings us back the report. And then we'll be able to look at what would be our path moving forward based upon what has been our initial planting.
And thank you for that, Mr. Chair. One last question on that. And again, obviously, we'll wait to see what happens or what it looks like on paper at the end of the next quarter. But did the council, I mean, are the measurements and because ultimately it's accountability, right? Are the measurements that that the staff's gonna be looking at, are those program specific or entity specific, or do we have a set, collection or a set group of metrics that we're going to be looking at? So for example, not just numbers of clients, because that I think is easy enough to reach, but what's the effect? I'm not sure that those kinds of effects are realistically measurable in a year's time. You know what I mean? So I'm just, again, if there is some documentation somewhere that I can look at to better understand what we're trying to accomplish and what we're going to be looking at relative to ROI and accountability, I'd love to see that.
Yes, so very quickly, in the orientation that I will do with the new council members, we'll talk about SIPS, how it came to be, all of the processes. I will tell you that it's program specific. So because these are individual applications, we look at what they're trying to accomplish and then did it actually get accomplished? What was our part in that with this funding? But we'll give you all of that information during the orientation, which is going to be a lot of information.
A lot, yeah. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question about the methodology of how the outcome was determined. For example, if someone was not at this time, is that based on average of 0, or even if like one person was bottom 2, I did recommend it, but it's like in the average, it was like 0 point something.
So Holly serves as our procurement manager, and I will allow her to answer the calculation question.
So for each of the individual responses from council members, those who submitted them, you put them in a formula and then it creates the thresholds and we create the natural breaks. So it could be, none of these had zeros all the way across, but it works like an average. I would just like to say none of the programs received zeros from every single person all the way across. Whereas like some of them, and I would also like to say that no one program received twos all the way across. So it works out kind of as an average and where you create those natural breaks.
Like a curve.
In essence, it's like a curve, and I'm kind of looking at Fred because everything I know I've learned from Fred. But as you're looking at the scoring and where you create those quartiles, or in this case, kind of the natural break between the three sections, so that there was a gap between them. So everything that came on the recommend had the highest scores of everything. Everything that's in the consider category was an average of kind of in the middle of the scores, and everything that's at the bottom at not at this time had the lowest scores.
Got it. Mr. Mitchell.
Holly, oh, go ahead, Ms. Of the 6 that we're looking at, have any of these applied before?
Yes. And if you give me a moment, I'll put that in front of me. And that has been before you. 1, 2, 3 have been before you before and have not previously been received. 1 has previously applied but did not meet the thresholds because they didn't in essence follow the rules, the application, and so they were deemed ineligible. And then this time, this was the first time in the SIPS process that none of them were deemed ineligible, meaning they all followed the directions correctly this time. So you have seen 3 of them before. That is roughly similar to what was presented previously, with some tweaks based on feedback that they had received in discussion by you as Chairman Jones described, is that they've heard you discussing, they've asked the questions, and when you've provided very specific feedback directly to staff on a certain application, and they have inquired, hey, can I get some additional feedback during the open window, and we've provided that to them. So again, 3 have previously applied that you've received, and an additional 1 had previously applied but not received by you.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just have a question for Holly. You seem to indicate that not all council members responded to your questionnaire that came to all of us. So how does that work into the equation if we, maybe 3 of us responded? I'm not sure, but is that fair to the applicants if we're using council members' scoring to determine it's funded and who doesn't?
2 council members did not respond, and they were not considered. So they were not considered as zeros, or they were not considered as anything. Your the calculation, instead of being divided by 9, was instead divided by 7.
Okay, to make it equitable. Okay, thank you.
Is there a recommendation or motion to be made at this time?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a recommendation. I'm gonna sort of follow the my fellow council members. I'm gonna be upfront. I read all of them. I thought all of them, they all kind of touched my heart in a way, but I gave everyone a 0. 1, I recognized several of them, but I gave them a 0, not because I didn't value what they proposed, but because I just feel so uncomfortable when the funding that we've done in the past, I have no idea whether it worked or not. And the reason I'm saying I'm going to follow the sort of the will of council, but also sharing with you that I gave them all 0s, is I'm truly not a cruel person. It wasn't like I thought they were awful proposals. I'm just not sure that I'm ready to vote on spending money when I have no idea, sort of to Ms. Marstoller's comments. I don't know how we've done with all the money we've spent before. And by the way, it was more than 6 applications. I mean, we have funded plenty in the SIPS category. So I don't have a motion. I just really wanted to Don't quote my son.
If I may offer this, we came to a decision because after we skipped, we came to a decision that we would use the fourth quarter when we accepted these applications for us to review. We all came to that decision. We didn't have to have this set of funding, right? Because we made that decision as a council. So
Right.
I understand where you're coming from, but we came to that decision together. So, I mean, you have your right to not choose anyone, but it wasn't for any failure on the rest of us to realize that we also needed to make a review of our previous investment. And that was why we said purposely and intentionally, that this will be our last one for this fiscal year, because that needed to occur. Is there a motion?
Well, I'll make a
Motion? Oh, I didn't realize that we hadn't made one yet.
No, we have not.
I'll make a motion that they're all rejected. Second?
Is there discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Chair. I will certainly vote against that motion. I
Why waste our time?
don't want us to make a mockery of the process.
End of our time.
We read all of the proposals. Not only that, we disseminated them to these groups. Holly has worked with these groups. We've seen these groups before, and they are trying. They provide services in our community to our children. And so I don't want this to be an exercise in futility for these entities that really have their heart and soul in the communities working with our children. The motion might pass, but I just wanted to say on the record, I want us as a council to just maintain
And operate in good faith.
yeah, in good faith, and that's the word, operating in good faith and be fair to these groups that have put their time and sweat and effort, not only in serving our children, but in putting together their proposals. And the one reason why we agreed to try to help them build capacity is because they don't have previous experience in submitting, proposals and being scrutinized by the Children's Services Council and other groups. So we are trying to help them, and I just don't believe it would be fair to them or upholding this entity to reject all of them. And that's my opinion.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, and I think that ultimately, I would be opposed to that idea as well. I do remember that we had agreed to Chair Jones' position that we would finish out this process. And to Ms. Marstillers, we have all been articulating that we want measurements, some way to measure return on investment. To Commissioner Cummings' point, helping folks build that capacity would be one of those measures to articulate our return on investment, not short term, but long term. And I think that really it falls on the executive director and the staff as far as what they present to us, not just the presentations of, people talking to us or like, Ms. Mercer said the numbers, but what is that presentation going to look like around the measurements and what we've been asked for? So I think we should follow through with what we agreed upon with this last round, this quarter. We've had this conversation before with Holly. Trust the process that you come up with measuring for these. And so that's my position. I do think we need to follow it through this quarter and allow the team to present to us, as they indicated, what this thing and measurement would look like, X, Y, and Z.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer substitute motion to fund the two entities that are recommended and the two that are in the consider category. So that would be 4. And that's my motion.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. All right. We'll now deal with the substitute motion. There'll be any public comment.
I'm not sure I understood the measurement, the amendment, I'm sorry. You want to fund the 4 instead of just the 2, so the 2 recommended and the 2 considered.
And to consider, because apparently there was some consideration by the council members, some credibility to those programs, and I know I was one of the council members that considered it as well.
And he said there's public comment. Yes, ma'am.
You ready?
Yes,
All right.
public comment.
Ms. Marcella she had her hand up first before public comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be perhaps more advisable to vote on each applicant individually rather than rolling? Because quite candidly, while I might be willing to vote, I might be willing to vote in favor of the 2 that got 2s, I may not be in favor of voting for the 2 that only got 1s, but if we roll them all together, it may be a no vote to all of them. See what I mean?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I think if substitute motion fails, we go back to the original motion. If it fails, somebody can make another motion. So I don't think it's.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. Public comment.
Yes. First public comment, Mr. John Sheets.
John Sheets from Sheet Street. I'd like to welcome the new members. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited that you're here. I've been following this council closely for the last 8 months, but in general from the beginning of the council. And I stood up here a few months ago. I'm a mentor for Florida Youth Shine, which are youth that age out of foster care. It's a youth-run organization. They were thinking of applying for SIPs. They never did apply. But I have been present for 3 of the votes. I have not always agreed with the council's decision, but it's always been lots of robust conversation, and I really appreciate Councilwoman Cummings' comment. I think this program, my comments are more in general to the discussion that happened before the selection. I think that what I really like about this process is it is capacity building. And I think it's important to measure investment. I agree, we want to see a return on their investment, but I think this is a slow process for a lot of these organizations. And I'm curious to see what the council, what the staff determines. But I think this is one of the Children's Service Council's greatest outreach in the community. I think this is what a lot of people see that you're doing. I think it's really great PR, honestly, that organizations can come back and learn and apply again and see the fruits of those efforts. And I don't think it's a large sum of money in the budget. And so I encourage you to keep the program. I think it is a great, it's great that it's iterative. It's great that it allows folks to come back and try again. And yeah, that's
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. Are there any other public speakers?
Yes, sir. Next public comment, Ms. Emily Fritz.
Thank you. I was looking at this and I haven't seen the application. The chart that describes the program doesn't say how many children will be served in these. So I hope that's the number you've looked at and have calculated out the per capita cost of each of these. The reason I say that is that I'm looking at the one where it'll buy 10 gym memberships for $15,000. That's $1,500 per person. I belong to a gym in Tallahassee that has 2 swimming pools, a basketball court, racquetball courts, every piece of equipment you'd imagine. I have unlimited yoga, spin, Zumba, Pilates classes. I have all of that for less than half of this. So $1,500. So I'm hoping, and again, no numbers, the number of people aren't listed on the others. So I'm just hoping that the per capita cost makes sense. I mean, it's not recommended at this time to fund that gym membership thing, but even if that was something y'all were interested in, you could probably pay the transportation costs from those children to my gym and still come up for less than $1,500 per person. So again, I'm hoping that when y'all looked at the applications, y'all calculated the cost per recipient and that it was reasonable, because on the one that does list the number of people, that's not a reasonable cost. Thank you.
Any other public speaker?
Yes, we have public comment, Mr. Stanley Sims.
My name is Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. Third time around. I'm an individual that, and most of you guys know me, I just speak from my heart. And I come in and I hear testimony like that. And I know Miss Emily, and we sit down and talk, even though we share different views. But it goes back to what you were saying, Mr. Watts, the last time I stood before you. It's about building that capacity. And I love Miss Fritz because she speaks from my heart. But what Miss Fritz and I have not been able to do is to show Miss Fritz that a regular fitness center does not provide the wraparound services of the children we try to save. I don't know how plain to kind of show that, because I can't walk into fitness center and get fitness center to understand that my child may have ADA. My child father may be in prison. I may be struggling. I may be a functioning addict. So we, the taxpayers, came together and said, we're willing to put a little bit more money together to ensure that these kids can build capacity with people they know. And these are not perfect people. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But these little miniature grants are not perfect people, but they're people with a perfect heart that cares about these kids. And so what you guys did was you said, okay, we know you're not perfect. So we're gonna give you a little money to build capacity. Miss Emily, you're right. This does not get our children across the line. I agree with you. But if it gives them 30 minutes of wholesome love and unjudgmental attention, that's worth $15,000. I love you.
Any other comment?
There's no more public, so we're cool.
Yeah. All right, we're now back to the substitute motion. It's been properly moved and seconded, and that would be that we would fund the first four, those two that are recommended and the two to be considered. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 You want a roll call?
Roll call. All right, roll call. Sorry.
All right. Ms. Marsteller,
No.
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
No.
Mr. Watts.
No.
Fails.
We're back to the original motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to withdraw my original motion and in respect to a motion that I think Ms. Marsteller had.
That was mine.
I'm sorry, that's true. I'm withdrawing my.
That was your second.
Your second.
You seconded it.
Yeah, he did it for you. Ms. Marsteller? Ms. Marsteller?
I'm sorry, I made the motion, I withdraw my motion. At the request of Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase the motion, but I would move that we vote on each of the 6,
So, if I may
on
also
each
say-
recommendation.
If I may, if you, do you have the sheet in front of you? Do you see the sheet?
I do, yeah.
So if you like, why don't we just do what you said, I offer a motion that we accept the first one, we voted up or down.
Okay.
Second, if you stop, then that's where we'll stop unless somebody else picks it up.
Right.
All right?
Okay, I move on the first organization, Addison Incorporated, that we accept the recommendation for $15,000.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment.
All right. The motion is that we accept the recommendation to fund Addison Incorporated for $15,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Do we need the roll call vote then? Okay. The ayes have it.
Okay. I move that for the second organization, Sisters Mentoring, that we vote to accept the recommended funding level at 15,000.
I second the motion.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any public comment?
There's no public comment.
All those in favor of accepting the recommendation for Sisters Mentoring Sisters Corporation for $15,000 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it.
I move for the third organization, Motivating People Through Arts and Crafts, that we decline the recommendation to consider funding of 15,000.
We don't have to do a negative motion.
Just don't.
We just don't
move on.
provide a
We just
motion.
don't. Okay, so I will amend my motion to move that for the remaining 4 funding requests, that we deny those requests at this time.
Second.
Why
do you have to do that?
I don't know that we were required to do that. If there's no
Okay.
motion to accept, then the rest, the remainder just will not be considered,
Right.
will not be funded.
Unless there's another motion.
Unless there's another motion. Unless there's another motion, yes. So
Okay.
remember, I told you, you stop, and if somebody else wants to pick up.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am. Ms.
Mr.
Cummings.
Chair,
Yes.
okay, considering the executive director's comments and board action too, where we have indicated that because we don't have as many applicants as we started out with, that we are going to suspend the SIPs until we get some analysis in the fall. And I know that was some reluctance on the part of some of the council members because we don't have an analysis of the prior SIPs applicants that have been funded. I don't think that should take away, I don't think it should adversely affect those applicants that submitted their proposals this time. Again, I just want the Children's Services Council to operate in good faith. I want us to recognize that all council members didn't respond to Holly's request for analysis. And I want us to also recognize that this is the last opportunity, perhaps this week, for these organizations to build capacity to provide services for our children. So I move that we fund the remaining 4 applicants that submitted SIPs during this category. That's my motion.
Guys, for lack of second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any additional discussion on SIPs? All right. We'll now move to item 11. Emergency funding request for nonprofits, Madam Green.
Yes, so you'll see in front of you in your packet and as a handout, the draft emergency funding policy. If you remember, this came out of a local nonprofit asking for some emergency funding. And the direction that the council gave to staff was to draft a policy for consideration. That is what you received. We did get input from Councilmember Watts. That is what you see with the red lines. And so at this time, I will turn it back over to Chair Jones to, facilitate.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have emergency funding before us. Thank you. Would you like to start off the conversation?
If I need to.
Certainly. Since you redlined.
Okay. Yes, so ultimately, the first section, emergency funding is not intended. I did recommend it just needs to be a will not. I felt like intended leaves open room for it to be intended. So I just felt like will not was a little bit more direct for that section there. And so that's twice under the emergency funding. I also felt like under the policy guidelines, number one, for how we were defining unforeseen circumstances provided an or, and I felt like all three of those things documented there, the impact on operations, financial stability, continued of a program, I felt like all three of them needed to be met instead of an or. So that was my reasoning there. I think under number two, eligibility criteria, the program must demonstrate. I recommended through sufficient documentation, so I added that language. That's exhausted all other available resources. I felt also that the 10% was too much of the reserves. Recommended 5%. I think if I read the budget correctly, the reserves right now is like around $700 some thousand. So I did recommend be more than 5%. Under A, again, just more language to articulate better, how the resources would support the need. Under number 5, this was more so my logic and reasoning behind number 5, the review and approval was articulating more. Sometimes we'll get things at the council meeting before. I think if we have someone that's requesting emergency funding, it'll be nice to go ahead and get notified ahead of time, the council, so that we have an opportunity to, if we want to start looking into that organization background, just maybe help the actual discussion when it comes before us be more productive. So if we already have questions, we can maybe be prepared to have the opportunity to submit those things to staff, so that council meeting when we hear and it comes before us, can be more productive. Also under number 6, I recommended that, so this is the accountability and reporting. It made mention that, things would be in line with our CIP fiscal guidelines. I just thought there was an opportunity to better articulate in there that, if for whatever reason we did approve organization requesting the emergency funds, even to the audit that was presented to us today, that it is clear that what is presented to us, if it's not followed, we still follow the same guidelines of anyone else that would receive funding, that we would have the ability to recoup those funds if it were not in line with what they presented, it will be used for and that we approve. So that's just high level of some of the discussion points I was bringing forth from what was originally proposed.
I have comments, but I want to reserve my comments last. Madam Cummings.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just one question or clarification under 5. This is a supermajority of all city council members. I'm wondering, like, if you council members that are present. When we say sitting, we mean council members that are a part of the children's services. Just a clarification.
Sure, so I didn't touch that.
Okay,
But
no,
Yeah.
but that's my question. Because like, we don't have all council. So Brian is not here. So I think in all fairness, we could possibly have a meeting with two members not present. So are we saying a supermajority of all sitting council members are all present? I think it makes a big difference. And my recommendation would be present at the meeting where the vote is being held.
So how does that differ from then just leaving
How does it differ from what?
a simple majority? So, yeah.
But let's say supermajority, which is, I don't have a problem with the percentage, but I just think we need to clarify.
Okay.
Members need to be present.
This is not my proposal.
Well,
No, but everyone will have been notified, so if you have a strong opinion one way or another, you show up. I mean, Commissioner, I agree with you.
Yep.
It's members present.
Right.
And I really do like the supermajority, but.
Right.
But we're also facilitating those persons, as you described, who can also come in electronically, as long as there's a quorum found in the room.
Right, they're present.
Mr. Mitchell, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's.
Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson.
I guess I direct this question to the vice chair. So under the definition for unforeseen circumstances, in policy guideline number 1, you give some parentheticals, I believe. Where is it? In there, I saw some third line. Yeah, so they may not be limited to natural disaster. So you're saying the positive on that what might constitute, does it make sense to put something in there that would be a qualifier that would not constitute sensitive to just, blatant mismanagement that might be a cause for an emergency and somebody's flailing and wanting money? Or do you anticipate that would be identified in another one of your red lines? And I apologize, I just got the red line.
Sure. I think that my intent was that maybe it could be covered in one of the other red lines, but I mean, I'm not opposed to that language somehow being included in there as well, but I think that's what, the example that we originally had, the first example of someone requesting emergency, I mean, there were some comments made on the council around, could have been around mismanagement. So I think that I wanted to make sure that, that and word, that maybe eliminated, that someone could just come for that, again, with all of the other eligibility criteria and things that they would have to submit, that would not be the only reason, for someone requesting emergency funds. It wouldn't meet criteria.
Second question, my final one was, did we capture if they had been previously funded by the CSC and any evaluation of those results?
I don't know that I saw that. I think I saw that they could not, I don't know, I didn't see that. So I think that's one.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, our community investment partners, that those guidelines are very clear that if you have been previously funded and there are any issues, you can't come to us.
So we wouldn't get it through.
So you wouldn't even get it.
Okay.
So if they submit it to us and we go, ooh, we will send them a letter letting them know, due to this, and this, your application will not move forward to the council. And that is according to our community investment partner guidelines. And I believe a suggestion had come that we could actually put the reference of that particular part of the guidelines in this draft. So when we get to that part, we actually put that up.
Chair Jones, I just want a clarification. So I want to make sure I understood the question right, and that were you asking if someone has been already funded by the Children's Services Council, could they actually meet criteria to come back? Or
at least as it's presented to us, we would want to know what the results of that. What our experience has been with them if we funded it previously.
We can add that as one of the bullets if you'd like. If the entity has been previously funded, staff will provide information on that previous funding and any outcomes, all of those things in the application. But what I can say is, if they've been previously funded and there were any issues, it won't come to you. So I think if I'm understanding what you're asking is, if they've been funded and let's say everything was okay, you just want to know that they've been funded.
I want to know that, but I want to know the flip as well.
So
I want to know if, if they've made application that the commission has funded them and we did not have a good result. I don't want there to be any question that isn't something that we get to lay our eyes on. That's all. Because there's just so many applications that come through and people that are funded, and I just like to know if I'm looking at an emergency and I'm getting called to a special meeting to deal with an emergency, that I have all the facts I need to make an informed decision.
So would you like for us to bring, so I just want to make sure I'm there.
I just need to know if they've had experience with the previous funding from the CSC, that those results are presented to us.
Right.
Okay.
If I may offer this, and it may not very well be popular. When I was in Human Services and was the executive director of the Bethel Community Development Corporation, which was an agency that provided first-time home ownership opportunities for working class families. And to our credit at the Bethel AME Church, we were able to build homes for first-time home buyers in historic communities like Frenchtown, Bond, Appalachian Ridge, Providence, Southside communities. And we built more than 75 homes. And then the economic downturn occurred, I believe it was in 2000 or 2008. And we were no longer able to qualify first-time home buyers. And when we were in that industry, it was us, and there were about maybe 10 competing organizations who were funded by the city of Tallahassee. We were described as CHODOs, that to be the federal designation of community housing development organizations. And then after the economic downturn, there was only 3 of us left. Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, Habitat for Humanity, and Bethel Community Development Corporation. And the way we were able to survive beyond that economic downturn was because of the leadership that we had in place at those organizations, who by virtue of the leadership found on the board and in the staff, those 3 remain. I don't know that it should be the responsibility of the Children's Services Council to save what could naturally be a natural segregation of the herd. I think that if there's talking about emergency funding, it should be emergency funding to meet the emergencies found in the community, but not the emergency found in an organization. If you are an organization that finds yourself in a bad situation, if your books are good, there are other sources by which you can get that help, right? Well, our books were good, right? We shopped our situation because we had a lot of land that we now could no longer move and make eligible for first-time home buyers. So they came up with a financial plan for us, our bankers did, whereby we were able to then flip those homes and then be able to still serve our historic constituency by then going from affordable first-time home buyers to now being able to provide rentals, build new homes for rental, for rent, subsequently still being able to meet the needs of our historic constituency of working class families, and then create a brand new stream of income, since we're now no longer collecting the monies from home sales, we're now collecting the monies from rents. You see what I'm saying? I don't know that it's the responsibility of us when we are charged with providing services to meet the needs of families across those different categories, saving not-for-profits. I don't know if that should be our job if they don't have the wherewithal to remain in business.
So are you recommending we don't have a policy at all?
I would recommend that we have a policy that provides solutions for what we describe as unforeseen circumstances for the organization. But if there are for example, with what we dealt with the cyclone, right? We had impacts on children and families who had to then potentially, so if Red Cross needed more money to meet the needs of children and families because of these unforeseen circumstances, then we fund them, but not because the organization finds itself in financial duress.
And I thought that was the whole intent, that it was a hurricane or an
Not
natural.
entirely here.
Okay, well.
So therein lies my issue.
Well,
And we talk about, and if you go to the other side, we talk about operations and financial stability of the organization. I don't know that that's for us to say.
I think.
hold on, Mr. West, just.
If I'm missing something.
No, I just want, really, to your point, the reason this came up was because of the nonprofit having a shortfall in another area, which impacted the money that would be, they would be able to have to support the program. And that was why they came.
And am I right? Have I described something different than what is potentially
No,
what we're describing?
No, we were giving options.
Based upon the original request, and we wanted to create a paradigm to respond to, in response to what was our first ask ever for emergency relief. And it was based upon an issue outside of services, but an issue born of the organization.
But if I may.
Yes,
just to
and
correct-
if I'm wrong.
No,
get
just
me
to
off.
clarify, the request also was, it could be anything that could impact it, so that's why we gave these options, which you all can line through.
I will add, so, I can't remember which meeting it was, but I think we voted that they would bring this back.
Yes.
That situation. And I agree with everything you're saying, which is, again, some of these words were like, it was and. Like all of those criteria had to be met for someone to even come before us. And these were, I'm thinking of in my mind, if you will, like you say, the storm that just came through, and let's say that you had some childcare facilities or whatnot, for whatever reason, couldn't, we knew that they served X amount of children. They had funding to get where, but maybe there was an avenue for us to, so, and I agree with everything you said, not for mismanagement of operations, but that would be fine with not having a policy in general and not having us as an avenue for. I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
No, Mr. Chair, I think it's just a matter of we need criteria. And I think if an entity comes before us, we don't have to look at it on a case by case basis. And so if you look, for instance, at the eligibility criteria, we can include a preamble that makes it clear that they don't have to necessarily satisfy each one of the criteria, including but not limited to, that type thing. So if we have an entity come before us, the body, the council members, we would have the flexibility and ultimately make the determination of whether or not the emergency situation is such that we feel that the Children's Services Council should become involved. Just like we did, we didn't have a criteria when we had the one and only entity came asking for emergency funding. But I just think it's so important that we have something in place so that if another entity comes, we can scrutinize it. And I think here with Mr. Watts' edits, and I think we can, like I say, further edit the eligibility requirement, and we can change that from eligibility requirement to say that the council may consider the following to determine eligibility. And that way it's not saying shall, you know, we're not saying this is the eligibility criteria. We can cross through that and say the council may consider the following to arrive at whether or not the entity is eligible or something like that, and not just tie ourselves in, give us some flexibility so that we can look at it on a case by case basis. So I think we should do it. We can tackle it.
Well, and if we had it, say for example, Rocky knows I'm always concerned about our vulnerable student populations, right? Particularly homeless children who have incarcerated parents, stuff like that, right? So with a natural disaster, it is the potential for Family Promise, big, which is unlike the Kearney Center, serves children and families. If there's an increase in enrollment because of people being displaced because of a natural disaster, we sit in Hurricane Alley here in the Gulf, right? I can imagine them having to provide more services, and they've already been constrained by an already existing budget. That natural impact is going to potentially impact their ability to serve everybody where the demand is increased. That's the emergency funding that I'm looking for. If they have the same number of residents and there's not been an increase, but somehow I don't know. But I just think
the grant.
They lost the grant. Then that means that if they lose a grant, then that means that they won't have that funding for next year. That organization then has to make decisions about the number of persons that they would serve subsequent, you know what I'm saying? That type of flexibility does not necessarily, they then submit to us for a regular grant, but not necessarily emergency funding. I don't think economic stability is a criterion for emergency funding. Not when there are other options. I don't think we ought to get to that.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And that's why I'm suggesting that we say the council may consider.
Okay.
Give ourselves some flexibility.
Okay.
And that way it's not mandatory. And we have a laundry list of what we may consider. And of course, primarily is they provide direct services for our children.
Mr. Chair, I'm sort of hearing two things, and we do have a funding bucket for natural disasters, and the ability for the Children's Services Council, as long as it meets the criteria that we've set, for entities to come to us, or the Children's Services Council to say, we've been devastated by a hurricane. Dina, how much is in that fund right now? We say 2% that goes into that? Or is that?
It's 2% for catastrophe.
Okay, so we have that. That is different than what the group that came forward that Commissioner Cummings is talking about. And Commissioner, I have no problem giving the council flexibility. I just want to go on record to say, when the organization came and asked for $250,000 because they didn't get their grant, and they knew about the fact that the grant was going away more than a year before they came to us, that to me is not an emergency. So as long as we're giving ourselves flexibility, I don't think we should lock ourselves in. But I will never support something like that. And I think, Chairman, that is getting to your point. If the organization is struggling financially because of something they've done, we're not the bailout. But if an organization like I know I'm gonna mess up, Family Promise, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, if Family Promise is trying to serve homeless, children and families, which was part of one of our, our subsections. And a tornado hits or a hurricane hits. We have funding available for that. And I would think that organizations like the Family Promise Civic Bank, it didn't used to be called that, but could come to us and say, hey, we need help and here's the reason why. That's why we set up that account.
But do we have procedures established to allow that entity to come and apply for those funds?
Yeah, Commissioner, that's a good question. We established the fund. I remember advocating for it heavily, like put money aside for when the bad day happens. I don't know that we ever set up criteria for natural disaster hitting. We just set up the money so that it was available if people needed it, sort of, what the chairman is talking about.
And for example, if I may.
Do we have it?
If I may.
I believe it.
Right. And for example, we even use the one where they've lost the grade. If it's a target, I mean, if it's gonna impact, if they're gonna be already existing. Okay, I like what you're saying, give us the flexibility, but I just don't think that sometimes when, I think you everybody's, I mean, that's in human services, there is a great demand for resources and dwindling resources. And I just, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, because I've spoken enough on this. Yes, ma'am.
So here are my thoughts, take them for, what y'all think they're worth. I think in principle, I'm okay with having this, sort of emergency policy. Mr. Mitchell, I did not know that there is a sort of a cat fund, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
For, sort of natural disasters. I find that interesting and I'd love to hear more about it and, understand if we've ever used it, how we use it or how we would use it moving forward. I think my issue with this policy is our definition of emergency. Unforeseen circumstances are unforeseen circumstances. They happen. They may not be emergencies. And to be sure, economic downturn, while it can be painful and difficult for our nonprofit organizations to continue to serve at the level that they had been serving, in the event of an economic downturn or a sudden change in regulation, I don't know what that would be. I think we should be very, as much as we can, if we're going to do this, be precise as possible in the way we define emergency. Because what we have here, I think, enables more requests for more kinds of circumstances than I think would be true emergencies. And I don't think that this council, that part of what we are here to do and part of our mission is to sort of be the insurer, okay, for failed funding for other entities and things like that. So I would in this form, I mean, I'm not assuming that we're getting ready to take a vote today, but I would encourage us to continue at least to fine tune the definition of emergency for this. And also take a look at our, CAT fund and see what those criteria are for that.
If I may also offer, to your point, madam, say, for example, there is an opportunity to refine your mission based upon circumstances in your industry or you know what I'm saying? So then here now, you're repurposing or expanding the tent or expanding the net that you'll be able to, by which you're able to serve. I would rather someone bring up an unsolicited proposal to do that than we bail someone out. Because that's what this is describing, a bailout. And and maybe that's the wrong word, maybe I'm reading it wrong. I guess because I'm looking at the semantics as seen in unforeseen circumstances. And then I see words like operations, financial stability, and continuity. I would rather if something happens with an organization, if we use Kids Inc., which is an organization I chaired for years, if they were to expand their tent to reach out to add another service area, or they were to reach out to serve the children found on any one of our college campuses, like they used to do back in the day when they had Eagles Nest at TCC. I'd rather them be able to respond to a greater demand for their services elsewhere and need money for us to support that than us bail them out. We said we wanted to fund innovation. I don't know that the bailout is described as a funding of innovation and ingenuity. That's just me.
Mr. Chair, Judge, to correct something I said, there actually is a policy on a catastrophe fund where we set aside 2% of that which we collect, and we put it aside for the sole purpose of a natural disaster. So I think Ms. Green can send us the 4 criteria that are the nice bullet points, but that's natural disaster. What I think, Mr. Jones is talking about is not financial mismanagement disaster. I don't know that we have.
Well, so if I may, just as we did, and that's what I passed to, Mr. Mitchell, I had to think for a second. And so we do, that's what the catastrophe reserves is for. So if there is a catastrophe, for example, real world, tornadoes happen, we got calls about childcare centers. We held off because DCF was coming in, the federal government was coming in, and that's what's described in this policy, which new council members, I will go through with you during the orientation. And so, again, we tried to draft something at the request of the council, and we also did research with other councils. They don't have emergency funding pots like this. They have the ability to pull from their reserves if there is something going on in the community. And you can clearly see that the nonprofits that are doing kids services are negatively impacted and need capacity or need more funding. So, I mean, we could go back and take another stab at it. You don't have to pass it this time.
Mr. Vice Chair, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Real thing, real short. In light of what Councilmember Mitchell has pointed out about our catastrophic fund, perhaps we might want to reconsider this and not have an emergency policy. When that entity came before us asking for money, was $40 million. We basically, we said, number one, we don't have a policy to provide emergency, and we don't, we didn't. We don't have a policy. I think without a policy, if we tried to do something like that, it would perhaps be arbitrary. You know, it would be arbitrary. We'd be haphazardly making a decision. So perhaps the best decision might be not to have a policy at all. And we have the catastrophic funds for, as our executive director has described it. And if we have any entity, within 3 years, we've only had one, there's simply, we don't have a policy to address emergency situations. For not, for outside entities, for nonprofit.
And if I may further, that entity decided that they were going to exit that program. And they transitioned it to another entity that is now managed.
I'll pause my question. Mr. Chair, so can we just be done with this and just withdraw this, just pull this item and move on at this point? Can we pull this item? Sure.
Well, that would require some consensus from all of us.
I think I've heard all of this for a while now.
I'll second it.
Was that a motion?
And I don't know if I needed to make a motion, you have to vote on that or not.
I mean, I think
Just
that
pull the item.
we can take that. I'm gonna take it.
We would need a motion to.
But based upon what we've said, I don't know that we just throw it away. I think there's more, I think there's opportunity. I mean, I know I'm the one who started us down this road. But again, with the examples that I have used, there's still opportunity for us to provide relief for our not-for-profits if the relief meets the needs, emergencies, or unforeseen circumstances that affect our targeted population.
Okay.
Compared to the organizations.
Where were you reading the catastrophe policy?
That's our reserve policy that we passed 2023, January of 2023.
That's in our policy, that's not in our bylaws, that's just.
No, it's a policy.
It's a policy.
Yeah,
So maybe what we do, or whoever is most appropriate, or whichever group actually readdresses that back under the.
So may I? Sure. I don't think that's what we should do. I think we've got the policy. I think the way we solve this is we take out operations and take out financial stability and only make it the continuity of a program, or the continuity of a program, because any of these things in Chair Jones's example could impact the continuity of the program. So for example, Tornado Kids Family Promise has not only their beds, but they need to bring in cots and they need money to support that. It's the continuity of the program. So if we just took the operations and the financial stability out, then that might solve our problem.
And therein lie the angst that started my conversation. So
Can I make a motion then?
Yeah,
do we
no,
select
we
staff?
just,
Yes, send it back, yes.
Okay.
Send it, the motion to send it back to.
you don't have
They'll
to
do that.
we'll
Can I add something to that though? Bring it back to staff, but then also allow that information to go to the council for the council to review and send back recommendations or feedback to you in time for the next discussion.
We will do that.
There it is. All right, moving right along. Family Resource Center update. Thank you for this robust discussion. Ms. Marshall, are you still with us?
I am, absolutely.
Yeah, you're.
Happy hour.
All right.
Yeah, like never has the Florida bar look so darn good.
And I noticed you don't have, look here, board member. Okay, but I'm saying, but if I weren't here. Yeah. Okay. Family Resource Center update from Children's Home Society of Florida.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
So last time you saw me, I was probably in a different role, but I am the Senior Director for the Family Resource Center. Oh, Kim Siney, for those of you that don't know, and welcome new council members. So I am the Senior Director for the Family Resource Centers, and I wanted to give you an update of where we're at right now. I have been with the team just over a month. We have hired our Family and Community Engagement Coordinator for this site, Ms. Deandra Williams, who's out there. And we are currently onboarding the Center Director, the Data Management Analysis, and the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator for 32310. And we are still interviewing for the Family Engagement Coordinator for 03 and 04. We have toured the Fort Braden area and looked at property space and opportunities there. We met with some key organizations that were in the contract to discuss those MOU conversations, including Whole Child Leon and the Stoop Center with Rebound and Recovery and Second Harvest. We have met with both Dina and Holly to discuss what both the data reporting will be looking like. Next month will be my first full report that I turn into you guys, so I'm excited to give you lots of updates then. And then also starting to look at that data management system and see exactly what measurable outcomes we will be documenting and showing you amazing results of. And I went to see the Putnam Family Resource Center. That was exciting just to get an idea of what they're doing in other areas. And we're still continuing to work with the National Family and Support Network to get everyone trained under that model within the next month. And then DeAndrea has started reaching out to local apartment complexes and neighborhoods in this area and is beginning to build her parent focus group. And it's exciting stuff, but I cannot wait to get started on this project and get it open for all of you. If you're having questions of like when that soft opening will be, we are still looking at August contingent on some of the construction that'll be coming up. But that's what I have for you guys for a brief update on a whirlwind of 30 days.
Congratulations.
Any comments?
You guys have any questions?
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right. First things first, in section 13, meeting time. Is there any interest or appetite that we would change our meetings from afternoons to mornings?
I don't. I've kind of got, my schedule's got used to.
I'm fine with it like it is.
All right. Don't want to go earlier. Only reason, I think part of the reason may have been is when we think about the public. Sometimes these meetings run long into the evening. I think that's why we were considering it, right?
So by history, we used to be at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. 2 o'clock. We used to be at 2 o'clock. We moved it to 4 o'clock because we had 2 council members who were consultants and they needed more time in their day. I'm just concerned we get later and later. So I just thought I would offer up possibly morning meetings, or if you go back to 2 o'clock. Same day.
So I'd rather stay at 4 o'clock and not go as long. And I'm gonna offer, no, I'm gonna say something, and I mean it with a lot of love and respect. If you have something to say it and be brief, and let's move on. We've been here over 3 hours now. We talk a lot, and I'm guilty. I'm a talker. I can talk as good as anybody in the world. I can talk. I'm just saying, from now on, we have point. Let's make a point and let's get it on. There's 9 of us. We all have opinions, right? Share your opinion, be brief with your opinion, and then let's try to move forward as quickly as possible. That's all I would offer. I think we can drag things out. Yeah, I would rather stay at 4 o'clock and hopefully be done before 7. In the weeds, there you go.
I would offer to the superintendent's comment, which is, I mean, historically, if we're gonna have, like we just did tonight, with a proposal, we are going to have comments. And so if we don't take advantage of reviewing that beforehand and having a practice where we can send those things ahead of time, we're going to end up discussing them here, which also prolongs the meeting. And that's every time. So I think too, there's some opportunities there. Because we do it every time. And that is the discussion as we're trying to figure things out. So I don't know how we address that, but.
That was part of the reason I brought the chart again, just to let you look at it ahead of time so that we're not looking at it, trying to digest it, and then vote on it all at the same time.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have upcoming meetings, finance and budget, Monday, July 8th. Governing council meeting on July 18th. For our next agenda items, we'll have kindergarten readiness contracts, finance and budget committee report, preliminary trim millage rate vote, presentation of the draft fiscal year 2024-25 budget, SIPS program discussion, FRC implementation update,
Public comment.
Public comment policy. Public comment policy.
Yes, that was at the request of, Vice Chair Watts,
All right,
and then draft emergency.
draft emergency funding will come back to us. And I'd also like to add that today is the last meeting, Judge Anthony Miller, who came to us following Judge Sorstrom, our inaugural chair. And it's been a real joy. Your perspective has been just invigorating and enlightening, particularly families that you have historically served from the bench. And so we thank you for this being concerning. I know the rest of my colleagues, certainly, I know the hour is long, but would also like to offer their thanks at this time. You got yours on?
Oh, I had a recommendation to add one item. I really was encouraged when we had a retreat with the onboarding of new members. I think there's some value in having a retreat. I know that was very important for me, and I would like to know whether or not, Miss Marsteller and Mr. Johnson, as far as, are they lions, are they otters, or?
We gotta find out what you are.
I can just tell from the discussion that both of them provided, they're gonna be of great value to this council. But that was the reason I had that.
Okay.
Have a little something for Judge Miller.
All right.
Just went to go get it.
All right.
District Chair, before we do, like, I just have one thing, and this maybe under member comments, and Superintendent, I apologize that the meeting's already gone long. There is right now a little bit of a legal battle between federal government and the state over the Florida Healthy Kids program. Florida Healthy Kids was a program started back in 1959. Became so successful in the state of Florida only that the federal government decided to adopt it, and it became the CHIP program, the Children's Health Insurance Program. Phenomenal. There, in Leon County, we have probably the smallest percentage of the population who is uninsured. And in an uninsured, I mean either by a commercial plan, an HMO through their employer, government funding like Medicaid, and with this small population of uninsured, and especially uninsured children, the concept of Florida Healthy Kids was to help, if you're over the Medicaid population, to help subsidize a portion of the health insurance. Again, keeping kids healthy, keeping them out of the hospital and the emergency rooms, so that they can go to school, learn, and become ultimately productive members of the community. There are some parents who have, and I don't know what the criteria should be, and I don't know the reason why, but have stopped paying the premiums to Florida Healthy Kids. And again, it's subsidized completely to up to full pay. And what I would like to suggest is that one of our priorities is a healthy family, and certainly healthy children. That we ask our executive director to reach out to the community where we have experts in this field and begin to put together some recommendations for us to think about. So I throw that out there. It really bothers me to see a child who would otherwise be fully insured by a statewide plan, which is who Florida Healthy Kids uses, lose their insurance because something has happened in the family. Again, I don't think we should just give it to people because they stop paying. There should be some sort of criteria, but it's such a small number, and I think it should be for a very limited amount of time. But I'd love if we could have a working group sort of focus in on it. And I have personally done a lot of digging on it. But I think there's people far smarter than I am on this topic. And yeah, so I throw that out.
Oh, I already have notes on it.
All right,
I've already taken it.
all right. All right, Judge Miller,
Yes.
as you know, as is our tradition, we retire your photograph and we make a special presentation to you to recognize and acknowledge what has been your great service to us. And it reads, Children's Services Council, Leon County, presented to Judge Anthony Miller, thank you for your dedication and service as a member of the Children's Services Council of Leon County, July 2022 through June 2024. When we adjourn, we'll take a picture. Y'all have time to take a picture together.
Yes.
All
Gonna
right.
do it now?
Thank
or-
you.
Let's use more people.
Alright.
Can I thank some people?
Yes, please, please. Speech.
I just wanted to, first of all, express my gratitude. Anytime you get a chance to serve in this capacity, not really, you know, the reason I was kind of voluntold by the chief, after Scherstrom left and he appointed me. So I kind of came in reluctantly because as a judge, you know, a little concerned about being on a public board where you have to make public comments and you just want to be in your chambers or be in your courtroom and just, you know, making decisions. But I warmed up to that, to the opportunity. And I was very fortunate to serve with such an incredible group. I just want to, first of all, thank all of the council members. I feel like I have learned something from each and every one of you all. And so grateful for the chief judge who appointed me. I'm so excited about the new board members who are coming on. I have a high respect for. I still want to say Judge Marstiller, you know, but Ms. Marstiller and also Mr. Johnson and Judge Hobbs, who's replacing me. I'm shifting from dependency to family law, and the statute contemplates that a delinquency judge is to be on this board. So the chief judge, effective July 1, you know, Judge Hobbs is going to replace me. I also want to thank Sika Green and her staff. You all have been so amazing. I'm going to miss interacting with you all, joking, eating your snacks, and just interacting with you. I'm very grateful for the public. We've heard so much consistently from the public, even in Walmart and other places when I'm around. I see members of the public.
You see both of us at Walmart? I know you see me there. Do you see standing there?
Just very impassioned about this topic and subject. I think this commission is in great hands. This board is in great hands with the leadership. I know Darryl Jones, you're going to do a great job. And also just the leadership that we have here with the general counsels that we have and Springer and also Rowe. And I want to make sure I don't leave anybody out, but I am so excited about this opportunity, and we'll stay in touch, and I'll be checking, making sure you all still doing the good work. I guess I will miss some of the carpetbagger discussion. But you all continue those and try to stay out of the weeds. I want to, you know, echo that, but a great job, and again, thank you for everything that you've been for me and helping me, you know, kind of shorten that learning curve.
Right, before we adjourn, are there any final comments to be made by any members of the board of the council?
Mr. Chair, I just want to welcome the new members.
Yes.
We're excited and I believe Mr. Mitchell, council member Johnson just might take my place on the budget committee, right?
I would love that. I would love to see me there.
I think he'll be a more of an asset to you. But anyway, but welcome you guys, and of course, I know the judge, great attorney, so welcome.
All right, one final announcement that I'm happy to make. And that is that our executive director, Ms. Sika Green, has been admitted to the most recent class of leadership Tallahassee. I was in class 20, the class that founded Youth Leadership Tallahassee 22 years ago. And I have been asking Mrs. Green now to apply for a number of years, and she has finally done so. And of course, on her first attempt got in, which is no surprise to any of us. And I can tell you as a person who really believes in the program, so much in fact that I've invited all of my principals in my district have subsequently joined, because it's been a fantastic resource and the connections. And here now the last 3 years, Ms. Sika Green has been a presenter to every Leadership Tallahassee class and now joins its ranks. So congratulations to her. All right, if all hearts are satisfied, we are adjourned.
I'm